I am a 30-year-old male, and I'm considering ending my relationship with my partner, 26-year-old female, due to her $250,000 in debt. My girlfriend has $250,000 in private student loans from undergrad private school with a variable interest rate. Recently, the interest hit over 11%, and doing the math on the loans has me devastated. With how fast her debt is growing, she will need to put $25,000 a year into it just to keep it in the same place. This basically guarantees that I will never have financial help during our relationship. Additionally, with how much she will need to work just to pay on the loans, I won't have much help around the house or with kids if we ever have them. I keep blaming myself that I can't just deal with it. It's just money, right? But at the same time, when I look at the reality of the situation, I can't help but feel I need to walk away from this relationship. Additionally, she's going back to school in the fall for a higher paying job, probably 60 to 85K income at the end, realistically, with the possibility of 125K a year if she works herself to death. But this program will add another $30,000 in federal loans. I think it is a bad decision for her to return to school, but it's also the only option she seems to have to up her income. I don't feel like I want to wait until I'm 45 years old when this debt might be paid off to have children. I don't want to put my life on hold in this way, but I also love her a lot. We've talked a lot about this and about her plan to pay it down. It now feels like my options are either accept this reality and it will be many years before she's free of this debt or end the relationship. Now, even though this is from 3 years ago, you know that I believe we can learn from debt stories, regardless of the time period, and especially when it comes to student loans. So I have said to you, so really quickly, okay, she has $250,000 in private loans from undergrad school. That is obscene. That is criminal. That should be absolutely unlawful. That a person can be charged a quarter of $1 million for her undergrad private student loan. And I really don't even get a true idea of what she majored in. The interest, 11%. Okay, $25,000 a year, family, just to keep the interest from going up. And it's funny because, I think, why I canceled my cable bill? I know it seems off topic, but work with me. It really is. Okay, it's on topic. You know why I canceled my cable bill in 2013 after I got divorced? Because I realized, you know what? If I miss one cable bill, because when I was married, we had a $300 a month, or I mean, it's about $250 a month cable bill, not because I wanted one. Okay. But he did have a business and we need to have the extras, yada, yada. Okay. But that's beside the point. But when I became single and that cable bill, I carried it to the next place out of habit. And after about 4 months, I thought to myself, well, this is just stupid. A $250 a month cable bill, bad enough as that is, but if I were to miss a month of cable, I would owe them about $500. And I remember when I was married, we missed a month of cable and the bill was darn near $600. And I remember thinking to myself, that is just obscene that I could miss one cable bill. And all of a sudden, I'm in hock for hundreds of dollars. Well, in this case, she's in hock for the thousands of dollars if she misses a bill. She's looking at what is it, about $2,000 a month, respectively. Yeah, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. One. Yeah, isn't that about right? $2,000 a month. Wait, hold on, you guys. I'm really bad at math. Hold on. I told you I'm really bad at math. Give me just a second here. 25,000. No, I'm not going to edit this out because I hate editing. Divided by 12. What is that? Yeah. Hey, I wasn't so far off. Okay. So just a little over $2,000 a month. That's just to keep up on the interest. And for some reason, I think that's low. It just seems a little bit low, but we'll go with that number. Okay. So around 25,000 a year just to keep up on the interest. So imagine if she misses a month. We are talking, family, more than $4,000 bill if she misses 1 month of student loan payment. And he's absolutely right. She's going to have to work long hours, and that means she's not going to be available to be at home. And should they ever have kids, if they could ever afford kids, the work's really on him to do it. See what happens sometimes, and you've heard me say this, people go, and they do this with kids when someone has kids. Oh, don't worry about paying for my kid. I just met you, but I've been paying for my kid all these years. So even if we have a relationship, you're not going to ever have to worry about paying for my kid. No, you have a child. The child comes with you. It becomes our responsibility to financially care for the child. You don't get married to somebody, hopefully, when one of you has kids, one or both of you, and you go, well, when we go out to eat, I'm not paying for your son or daughter's, meal because that's your child and you're responsible for them. No, it don't work that way. Once you join union, it's everybody's responsibility to take care of the child. Well, and I think this is a good point right here. You've heard me say it. People marry with student loan debt and they think, oh, well, I'll just take care of the debt myself, which, if you think about it, is kind of the situation here. They've sat down, they've had discussion with each other, and she's like, yeah, basically, I'm going to interpret here, okay? Even though it was not said directly, we could infer. That is, she's going to work to pay off her student loan. She's going to worky. Great. But what he's figured out, and rightfully smart, and rightfully so, who's going to support the household? Well, she's paying off all her debt. Oh, that's right. He's going to support it. The electric, the rent, the cable, the car insurance. He's going to have to support that. I kind of align that with the same analogy with the child. Okay, so you bring in a child. Okay, great, fine, whatever. But maybe you have, maybe you're the one paying child support. Maybe you're the one that has custody of the child. Either way, the child's going to cost money. And it's not as simple as just saying, oh, don't worry, you're not responsible for paying for my child's bills. Yes, the other person is responsible. And same thing with the debt that you bring into the relationship, same thing with the student loan that you bring in. Let's see here. He says he's blaming himself, that he just can't deal with it. I think perhaps we need to have more people thinking like this. I'm not saying that you should break up because someone has student loan debt. All right. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is perhaps before we get ourselves into the debt, we need to stop and we need to go, oh my God, I cannot deal with a $2,500 student loan. And I'm telling you, I think that $2,500 low. That's coming from the writer. You're talking $250,000. So I really, really believe that is low. But let's just go with what the writer says. Okay. We need to be afraid of the debt before we get ourselves into it. I don't know what the bejesus school she went to for a private undergrad, unless it was something like, what is it, like NYU, Columbia. It's got to be an Ivy League school of some sort up there. At the same time, when I look at the reality of the situation, I feel like I need to walk away. Let's see here. Oh, and this just blows my mind. She got to go back to school, get herself another $30,000 in debt. So now we're looking at 280,000. See, this is why I don't care when the stories are a few years old. She got the debt right now. As a matter of fact, she's probably still in school right now. So we are now looking at 280,000. We're probably looking realistically to a closer $3,000 a month student loan. And she wants to take on 30,000 more. And he's going, this is a bad decision. Yes, it is. It's kind of like when someone gets a scholarship. And this is something you have to be careful about, especially you young folk out there and you're getting all your scholarships. Check out just exactly how much that scholarship is paying for. What is it paying for? Especially, this is just my opinion. If you're going for a master's degree, great with the bachelor's, get all the scholarships you can. Great. But when you are done with the bachelor's degree and you are sitting on student loan debt, that you are responsible for paying off. And then some school says to you, oh, you know what? Come to our school and we'll give you a scholarship. You better find out just how much that scholarship is actually paying for. Because if you're not careful, that student loan debt that you still have from your bachelor's degree that you don't want to open up your mail and look at, and you're afraid to call Sally Mae, Navient, whomever. Well, if the offer that you get to go to graduate school says, hey, come here, okay, we'll buy your education, you better find out just what parts you're going to be responsible for, including room, board, books, okay, miscellaneous stuff, so to speak, because you're going to have to add that to the debt that you already carry for your bachelor's degree. In other words, I totally see his point here. She's going, well, I'm not going to make enough money to pay off this $250,000 private student loan at 11% interest. So I need to go back to school, get myself into further debt, and then I'll be okay. But look at the meager pay that she's going to get. What is it? 60 to 85K. That's ridiculous. That's what a school teacher makes with a YouTube channel. That is, and if you strapped me with $250,000, seriously, 85K. I mean, I make in the low 80s between YouTube and teaching. You give me $250,000? Are you kidding me? Oh, no. Remember, she wants to go back to school. So now we're talking more than $250,000. This is this sort of thing here where he says, I think it's a bad decision. He is absolutely right, and he needs to go with his gut. What is it? His gut feeling. And this I thought was very, very insightful of him. He says, I don't want to wait until I'm 45 to have children. Because see, he doesn't want to get into the debt. So he understands that before they have kids, not saying you have to be out of debt, not even saying you can't have student loan debt, but it's the debt to income ratio. And he's like, how are you going to pay for all the medical care, the insurance, the child care? God, forbid. I've heard child care stories as much as, what is it? $800,000 a month. And in some really ritzy areas, it might even be that per week, which just seems insane to me. Okay. And he says, I don't want to put my life on hold. I have told you in the past about the fact that when you marry someone who has a lot of debt, I don't care if you marry them, have a relationship, it doesn't matter. Okay. But you're in a relationship with someone who has a lot of debt. You have to ask yourself, will you be happy when you see the friends around you that don't have the same level of debt? That's the key. Okay. They don't have the same level of debt that you have. Will you be happy when you see them doing the things, maybe big life markers that you would like to do, but you can't do it, not because you have debt, but because someone you love and care about that you would like to be in a relationship with, because they have debt? Because I'll tell you something, we can all sit there and go, oh, I love this person so much, yada, yada. Great. Until you realize that your hands are kind of tied, figuratively speaking, that you can't do anything because you're carrying so much debt. And that may be fine to carry for, say, a few years. Heck, I'll even hang on and say 5 years, okay? Which seems like a long time when you're waiting for someone's debt to get paid down. But you might even be able to do that. He's talking till the age of 45, because he's going, look, she already got a house. She comes with 2.5 of my condos, the little sucker that I'm sitting in right now. She comes with 2.5 of those. She comes with a house that you could probably buy today, depending upon the city that you live in. He understands this, and he's enlightened to realize he would not be happy. Now, look, if you are happy, I'm not advocating saying that you must break up. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is, before you commit yourself to someone, you got to be really honest. See, because in college, when you're all in college, because they're young, all right? It's easy to go, oh, you've got all that student debt. Oh, no problem. And then you're all in college and everybody's happy because you're not really having to deal with the real world. But once you get out of college and the work hours start and all of that stuff starts to become routine, the 9 to 5, the I'm going to go drive an Uber job and all of that stuff, it will change your perspective about what type of debt you are willing to put up with as you enter your later 20s into your 30s. It's going to change it. And while you may really, really love someone, and it's okay to really, really love someone, you may find that the debt load that they carry is just not something you wish to put your life on hold for, and you should have absolutely no regrets at all, in my opinion. But what you should have regret, however, over is if you've misled that person to believe that their debt is fine and you never say anything, and you lead that person on to think, oh, you're all good with it, when you're really not. And the worst thing you can do is continue the relationship and even go into marrying them and always having that, patch of grudge on your shoulder and getting more and more angry as you realize you can't do anything. And all your friends, meanwhile, the ones that do not have $250,000 debt, yeah, they may have 10, 20, 30. They may even have 50,000, okay, of student loan debt, but they ain't sitting on no $250,000. And you realize they're able to go and do things that you can't do. And again, it's not saying compare yourself to your friends. That is not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is just simply be honest with yourself and really look and ask yourself, will you be happy working extra hours, longer hours, multiple jobs, holding off your life, not for just a few years, but possibly for a decade or more, possibly a couple of decades? Because how old are they? I think it's like 30. Yeah, 26-year-old with $250,000 and growing. Will you be happy holding your life off for a couple of decades? And if you're not going to be happy and you know it, doesn't mean you don't love the person, but you do owe them an honest response sooner, not later, in letting them know you care about them, you love them, but you think you should just remain friends. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And that is what this guy ultimately did. He actually did give an update. Not going to read it to you because I'm just going to tell you, but he decided to end the relationship. Said he loves her a lot, but just decided after looking at the Reddit comments and stuff, he said basically he's out. I don't blame him. He's 30. His life is just starting. And this is something people we got to be careful of. And it really doesn't matter whether your life is just starting or whether we're towards the middle or even the end. It's how much debt do you want to be a slave to? And at 30 years old, do I want to see anyone strapped down with $250,000 worth of debt? No. But she made a foolish decision. Got to be honest. I mean, foolish is the nice word. Okay. Foolish decision to take an 11% loan to get some undergrad private school. And, the only winner in this, of course, is the private school. Oh, that was really heartbreaking to read, family. Okay, let's read the next one here. Let's see if I can remember which ones I chose. Oh, let's see. Hold on here. Boyfriend. All right, let's do this one. My boyfriend got into serious debt, and I'm wondering if I should break up with him. All right, let's check it out. This is from 6 months ago. The past year has been really difficult for me, and I feel like I'm at a breaking point. I've been with my boyfriend for 2 years now, and while I love him deeply, our situation is starting to take a huge toll on me. Last October, and again, this is from 6 months ago. Last October, he decided to start his own business and bought a truck. He didn't have the full amount, so he paid half and borrowed the rest from a shady guy who basically pushed him into taking the loan, selling him dreams of success. Big mistake. Since it was winter, there wasn't much work and he struggled to repay the debt. The guy he borrowed from started harassing him, calling him 10 times a day, threatening him, and making his life really bad. On top of that, he already had a small debt with the bank that he couldn't even touch because of the stress and pressure from this other guy. Eventually, he cracked under the pressure and gave the truck away just to get rid of the situation. Now he's left with nothing, no truck, no business, and still working full time for a basic salary. I've been the one holding things together for the past 7 to 8 months. I paid for everything: dates, food, essentials. I didn't mind at first because I love him. But now I've realized I have zero savings and nothing to show for all my hard work. I'm working a stable job with no debt or loans, but I'm basically draining myself to keep us afloat. To be clear, he's not using me. He's extremely hardworking and spends every day at work, including weekends. He's also the most caring, loyal, and supportive partner I've ever had. We've never even had a serious fight in all the times we've been together. Emotionally, he's amazing, but financially, it's a disaster. Either he's bad with money or just doesn't have the mindset to manage life like an adult yet. All of our conversations lately are about how he's going to slowly rebuild, save up, and eventually try again with a business. I want to be supportive, but I'm exhausted. The emotional and financial pressure is too much. I'm scared about my future with him. I don't want to keep living like this, barely making it through, always worrying about money, carrying everything on my shoulders. He knows how I feel and keeps reassuring me that he won't stop working and will get us back on track. But I don't know if that's realistic or just wishful thinking. Am I being stupid or naive for holding on to this? Is it wrong to consider breaking up, even if he's loving and loyal? Or should I give it more time and see if he pulls through? All right, again, 6 months ago. They don't say what age they are. I wish they did, because sometimes it gives you a perspective. But let's just put it, they're in their probably late 20s, 30s, if I think of the Reddit crowd and the fact that he has a business. All right, so let's break this down. I love to do. Um, the truck thing. He got a truck from a loan shark. That's what he did. He got a loan shark for the truck, because she even says here, a shady guy who pushed him into taking the loan. No, the shady guy did not push him into taking the loan. That's like saying, well, I went to the car dealership and they pushed me to go buy the Maxima. No, you went and allowed yourself to be pushed and tousled around and you walked away with the bill. So we have some issues there about who is at fault. And this is very important, especially if you want a relationship, because if somebody comes home, you're a married couple, and someone comes home and says, what was that Dave Ramsey story I did? They got married and then the husband buys, I kid you not, a $70,000 Kia. It was like 60 to 70,000. It was nothing less than 60. Okay. And it was like, oh, the husband just felt like he just had to do it, goes into the dealership and, the dealership gave him such a good deal, he felt like he had to buy it. No, nobody pushes you into buying a car. You allow yourself to be led like a little leash when you walk into the car dealership. So no, the boyfriend is totally responsible for the guy. The shady guy did not push him into taking the loan, because that is saying that the boyfriend is too young, too immature to make his own decisions. So everyone else has to be at fault. He may be young and immature, her boyfriend, but he is at fault for the decisions he makes. Let's see. Boyfriend struggles to repay the debt. And of course, the shady guy is calling him. So the boyfriend sells the vehicle and he cracked under the pressure. I'd say her boyfriend has a serious problem with standing on his own 2 feet, making his own decisions. This so-called shady guy has been able to push the boyfriend around, leading him like a little doggy on a leash. So the boyfriend is clearly immature. If I go to a car dealership, okay, and I'm like just looking at vehicles, that's what I did with my what is it? My Nissan, my Toyota Corolla hybrid. I went to the dealership spring of 2024. May was, I think, it was just before school went out. And did I get pushed into a more vehicle? No. Did I crack under the pressure of the sales? No. So it is possible to go into a dealership or any business place, regardless of what's being sold, and maintain your own control. She says that she's been paying for everything. I think she needs to take a serious look at the immaturity of her boyfriend. Now, I'm going to tell you, I think she should end it. And here's why. He seems to be very adverse, and we see this a lot in the TikTok begging stories that we do on this channel. He seems to be very adverse to working a W-2 job. Yeah, she says here he still works full time for some basic salary. Okay, but she says basic. So when I think of basic, I'm thinking near minimum wage. Like, really, he doesn't want to be a W-2 employee. He wants to be self-employed. And he basically wants this girlfriend. This is the impression that I get. He wants this girlfriend to be the one to support him as he tries his hand at self-employment. One, they're not married, so that's one reason I wouldn't do it. But the other is just simply, that's not her job. It is not your boyfriend, girlfriend's job, just my opinion, to be the anchor support while you experiment with your business to see if it's going to work. This is why I would tell her to end it. And ladies, I'm talking to the ladies out here. Okay. I've talked to the guys about this, but it's my turn to talk to the ladies. Ladies, I know you love him, and I know you want the best for him. You want to do everything for him. Okay. But if he's too lazy and immature to realize that self-employment right now is not his thing as far as profit, and he expects you to support him while he tries his hand at it, you need to leave him. Okay. That's where you go, oh, you know what? I'm happy to be friends with you, but we are not moving under the same roof together. That's what you say. Okay. Zero savings and nothing to show for all my hard work. Huh? Where did we just hear something like that? Oh, yes. I believe in the story that I just read. How many minutes ago? 24 minutes ago. Yeah. He decided to leave the gal with the $250,000 private student loan at 11% interest. Oh, that just makes me shake and shiver when I say that. Okay. Because he didn't want to work till he was 45 years old and have nothing to show for it. Yeah. You have a right to want to have something to show for your hard work. You have that right. You've earned it. All right. You want something to show for it. She's working a stable job, no debt or loans, but I'm draining myself to keep us afloat. And he's just your boyfriend. He's not. That's a sentence that you say when you're married. Oh man, I'm just draining myself here to try to keep us together or keep us financially afloat. Okay, you do that when you get married. Your boyfriend, no, no. You each are supposed to bring to the table your capabilities and you try to make it work, right? When you are the floater, the floater and floaty or something like that, and you're on that, what is that, floating board, and you're having to hold it for yourself and him, and you're doing all the kicking and the paddling, and all he's doing is dead weight in the water, you got a problem. That's why she needs to end it. And how many times, and we've heard this on the Ramsey show, especially from women who understand that they have a deadbeat boyfriend, husband, but they're afraid to, end it. What do we hear? Oh, he's extremely hardworking. He works all the time and I just love him. I admire his work ethic. I remember a lady said that once very, very clearly, and her boyfriend is just a total loser. And he had spent a whole bunch of money, like 50,000 or so. How do I remember these guys? I know everything I put on my channel. That's the way it goes, guys. I know everything I put on here. Okay. But he had spent thousands, like to the tune of 50, 60,000 plus. He had hidden it from her. And then when she found out, she was like really, really mad. And then she goes, oh, but he's such a hard worker. And I'm thinking, who gives a crap? Who gives a crap if he's a hard worker? He had $50,000, $60,000 of debt behind your back. Stop using the excuse of, oh, but I love him and he's a hard worker when he ain't doing nothing to help bring something to the table. Again, we are not talking husband and wife. I would feel differently if it were husband, wife. I'd say, okay, give it one last shot, really try, keep each other afloat financially. No, but boyfriend, girlfriend, no. Emotionally, he's amazing. No, he's not emotionally amazing. He can get screwed over just going into a car dealership and the guy can lead him to buy a car. And then the guy understands, hey, if I call him 10 times a day and I harass him, he'll give up the car. No, he is not emotionally amazing. You see, both the Redditor and her boyfriend have emotional, what is it? They have immaturity in different spots. Okay. And I understand she wants to see this relationship with rose colored glasses on and all of that. But no, he is not emotionally amazing. And he is a financial disaster. All right, let's see here. I think we got enough on that one. Yeah, she says emotional pressure and finance is too much. I'm scared about my future with him. Right there, that's the end of that. All right, people, what time is it? Ooh, it is 27 minutes in, and what is it? 8:30 it's 8:50 p.m. But it's vacation starts on Friday. The night is young. Let us continue. All right, let's see. What other story do I have here? I kind of pre-selected this. Don't worry, we're going to be doing these stories eventually. Nope, I didn't want that one. Hold on. Where is it? We're going to do these one later. Where'd it go? Hold on just a second. This one right here. Okay, we're losing money. 33-year-old wife. Excuse me. This is from 9 months ago. We're losing money. And was that wife? Oh, and my husband, 33 years old, and wife, 30 years old, refuses to work. Why can't some of you Redditors write a title that I could actually understand? All right, here we go. This was 9 months ago. This isn't the case of mismatched values, like she wants to be home traditionally. All right, now I get it. It's the husband who's 33 years old writing, and the wife is 30. Okay. This isn't the case of mismatched values, like she wants to be home traditionally and I don't like it. She wants to work, but because the job market is bad, she's not getting any callbacks. Some background. My wife has anxiety that she doesn't see as a problem to her until it's a problem. Panic attack, isolating, crying spells. That's important. Within the pipeline of school, growing up gave her an edge on her performance that essentially converted into depression when she graduated, when she couldn't find a job in her field during COVID. Oh, okay. All right. Now we're going to try to follow this because I'm already confused. Okay. The writing is struggling a little, family. Okay. So the wife has anxiety. And the problem is that she doesn't seem to deal with her anxiety until she's actually in a panic attack. So it sounds like she's in a little bit of denial. All right. I think we got it. And she wants to be a stay-at-home wife, and he's fine with that, but it looks like some money is needed. A year before COVID, we were in the same position as now, then that she could do service food job, but she felt it was unfair because she had her degree. I'm going to have to interpret this entire thing. So our setup was she paid for food, I paid for everything else. She has savings she was living off of. And because our rent was cheap, I could still save and pay 100% of it. Let me interpret this, okay? So apparently, the wife has the ability to work in food service, but she doesn't want to because she has a college degree. And I'm interpreting that as she feels working in food service is an insult. We then decided to buy a house. Well, renting, our expenses were 2/6 of our income. In our house, our expenses are 5/6 of our income, all pre calculated with the understanding that she would only go up in her field financially. And I had a steady job and just moved to management. I voiced my concern for her not working before committing. And she said, quote, I'll work because I'll have to, meaning awareness. We are buying based on both our incomes, not just mine, unlike our rent situation where no matter what, my pay covered things. After a year of moving to a house, she didn't like her job. So we agreed she can go to school online full time for 1 year. She will use her savings to pay for school, then re enter the workforce, going from 45 to 70K a year based on her research. I asked. She worked part time for security and her mental health, but she preferred to take more classes and graduate sooner. So she graduated in 1 year instead of two. If she didn't get a job after a few months, she would do service industry until she did. The service industry is like, well, it's the service, wait, hotel staff, stuff like that. Now we are TLDR. Why do people use abbreviations? I do not know what TLDR stands for. Now she can't work. 3 months, no hits on jobs, and it's back to I shouldn't have to. I have my master's degree. Okay. I showed her the finances. She reads and understands. We are now 100% on my income, and it's my savings being the only reason we are floating. And we will have zero savings in 2 years if she doesn't work. If she brings in just $1,000 a month, we break even at least with nothing being taken out of savings. Her logic is she's not depressed like she was. Yes, there's pressure to work again. I'm sorry, the way this person writes, it's just, I'm trying to work around it. She wants to just keep cutting back spending everywhere, which we can, which is essentially nowhere. We are both frugal homebodies. I spend less than $80 on myself for entertainment a month. She thinks the only reason there will be for her to work will be if she's getting depressed again. And because that's not happening and we have enough money to last 2 years, if nothing goes wrong, she should keep holding out. Basically, he has a wife who doesn't want to work. And she doesn't want to work because she feels that service industry work, food service work, that being service industry, is beneath her. And her husband is saying, look, lady, we're going to run out of savings if I'm the only person bringing home anything. And even if you worked and you brought in a meager $1,000 a month, that would only break us even. We wouldn't be able to cover emergencies or anything else like that. I'm trying to interpret my logic. I feel so taken advantage of. It's ridiculous. We literally wouldn't be here if not for my stability. I get no credit, stretch, for providing to the point she can even have a choice. I feel tricked and misled, and reassurances she's not backing up. That's right, because she said, hey, remember, they're taking a side note. They, to me, I got to insert this. The big glaring problem is they bought too much freaking house. Their rent was 2/6 of their income. Their house is 5/6. They're basically house poor. Not basically, they are house poor. And they bought the house with the assumption that she would return to work. And she backed out. Okay. For trying to help those who may be multitasking. Oh, more abbreviations. ISTG. I do not know what that means. Okay. If she was happy being a stay-at-home wife, it'd be an adjustment, but I'd get on board. In other words, again, he's happy with letting her be a stay-at-home wife, but they can't afford it. But the issue is she's not even happy and it's hurting our relationship. All I want to say is I love you, but you need to get your head out of your pretty rear end and take your lesson from life that you're not better than anyone else because of how smart you are. And you're coming off like a spoiled, privileged brat, thinking you're too good for certain kind of work. All right, I'm going to get into all their stuff. Classic case of you marry someone. Yep, this is the one. The classic case of you marry someone, and initially they come across as, yeah, you know what? I'm going to work hard. And yeah, we would like you to be a stay-at-home wife. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, there are some serious risks with that. I might address that someday on this channel. It's not to judge. It's just to simply be, You got to look at the facts of being a stay-at-home parent, mom or dad stay at home. Okay. Um, but this is a classic case of she did a whole about face. I'm going to say it. I'd end it. I would end it before you had a kid. Yes, I would. Because unfortunately for some people, their true colors come out after you get married. That's when you realize they don't really like to work all that hard. And he should feel taken advantage of. Absolutely. She can't bring in a couple $100 a week. Seriously. So in this type of case, before they have kids, it doesn't sound like they have any. And if she's going to use her anxiety as an issue, and to me, anxiety is a very real medical condition. And I know people who have it and really, really struggle with it. And there are things that trigger and all of that stuff. But guess what? They're still really responsible. And they understand that things still have to be done. And they understand they can't just sit and go, well, I have anxiety, so everything shuts down and they don't work. If they do not have children, it does not sound like they do, they absolutely need to end the relationship. And this was a huge mistake, buying the house. The reason I think they should end it now is easier to divorce with just a house to deal with that probably has no equity, because this just ran a few months back, right? Yeah, 9 months ago, than it is to have a kid. And now you got to deal with all of that too. Because this is the type of woman, I guarantee it to you, if they have a kid and they ever divorce, you're going to take him every single time every time she sniffs that he makes an extra dollar, she's going to be right there with her hand out. They bought way too much house. So he's got some responsibility also towards the situation. But should he feel used? Absolutely. And yes, this snootiness of, well, I have a college degree, so I don't believe I should be working in food service and I shouldn't be Ubering, Door Dashing, or anything else. Give me a break. I do childcare. I do childcare after school, and I run my little YouTube channel. To me, nothing is too good. If you can make an extra buck, actually, I have to be honest, and anyone who's followed this channel since I started 5 years ago, this channel was never intended to make money. It just kind of landed into it. And that was probably the saving grace for the channel and why I was able to go for so many years without making anything, because it was never intended. It was never designed to make money. That's why I don't have sponsors and stuff. Speaking of sponsors and stuff, I spoke to a gal pal earlier today, and it was like, I'm really not too interested, at least right now, in sponsorships, because I like my audience to be able to watch it. You don't have to deal with commercials or anything. If you can handle, looking and listening to me, you'll do just fine. But I kind of like having, whole control of my channel and not being obligated to anyone. Being obligated to Google's rules is hard enough. So, yeah. Let's see here. Now, what was I getting off topic about? Let's see. I think that was pretty much it. So yeah, taken advantage of. We wouldn't be here if not for my stability. That is where, what is it? Resentment. That's the word. Resentment is going to build in. As a matter of fact, resentment is already building in. So end it. Time to let it go. Okay, that was story 3. There's one more story that I want to do. Let's see here. Left my wife after the debt got out of control. I want to do that one. Hold on just a second. Looking for it. Let's see. We did that one. Okay. This is the last one. This ran 2 months ago. And again, most of these I just skim. That's all I do. All right, here we go. 2 months ago. I'm a 33-year-old male. I left my wife, 33-year-old female, so they are the same age, after her debts got out of control. I'm trying to understand what to do next. All right, let's hit it. We've been married for 13 years and have 2 kids. Things were mostly good. Though she has a strong attitude, I learned to live with it. The problem started with money. She runs a small safari store, and I'm the only one with a fixed salary. Around late 2023, she started taking loans. At first, I didn't mind. I thought it was manageable, but it kept getting worse. To help her, I took a salary loan from my company to consolidate her debts. Later, I found out her brother, he's 30 years old, gave her money to pay his own loan, but she didn't pay it. So I guess she was supposed to pay her brother's loan. I don't know why her brother couldn't pay his loan, but okay. We ended up using my loan to cover her brother's loan. So I took another loan from a microfinance company just to catch up. Quick side note, usually microfinance companies, if I'm correct, they can have very high interest rates. By 2025, this year, things got out of control. She had at least 10 active loans, some with daily interest of 10%. I had no idea until everything fell apart. She kept saying things were fine and hid details from me. When it got really bad, I tried to fix it again. I asked my boss for help. He couldn't approve another loan, but offered a salary increase and 5 months advance. I told my wife, thinking we could finally get stable. Instead, she borrowed again behind my back, assuming my advance would cover it. That was my breaking point. I left and went to my parents' house. I didn't cut her off completely. I still tried to make a plan and asked her to listen and asked her to list all of her debts. She only gave about 90% of the total. The next day, she admitted to more, and the plan collapsed. She wouldn't cooperate. My family and I decided she should stay with her family while I take care of our 2 kids. I'm still paying off some of her loans, but I need to prioritize the kids and our daily needs. I think her family might see me as the bad guy for leaving when things got rough. Maybe they think I abandoned her at her lowest point. I'm not sure. From my side, I just couldn't take it anymore. The lies, the financial mess, and the stress were too much. Again, this was 2 months ago. All right. I would have said to leave, and I'm going to tell you why. We have listened to enough Dave Ramsey stories to know if you want to guarantee yourself a poor retirement, poverty, literally financial poverty, spend your life with someone who does not value money, who does not have the same ideologies about money, who does not respect the effort it takes to make money for your household. Stay with someone like that, and I guarantee you 100%, at least 99.9, you will retire poor. Stay with the I made a promise to myself that by the time I was in my 40s, okay, before I hit 40 years old, I had to have some sort of retirement plan. I had to have done something to become aggressive with retirement. So that's when I decided to become a third generation teacher. I'm in my 20th year. But imagine being with someone who does not think like that. This woman, clearly she has mental health, whatever issues. But you have to decide how long you're going to stick around in a relationship that is just going to financially destroy you. And you think divorce is bad? I'll tell you what's worse than divorce: staying with someone who's going to financially destroy you, and you'll never be able to retire. And he's young. He's 33. He's smart, and he's got kids. And he sees the writing on the wall already. He sees it. And he's going, oh my God, you know what? If I stay with her, we're going to be broke. Yes, because like I was just saying, by the time I was 40, I had a retirement plan down. I became a teacher at 38. He's 33 years old. Does he want to, in all of his 30s and all of his 40s and possibly his 50s, deal with this? This is almost, I don't know what a mental health issue is, but maybe she's an addict. Sounds like she's an addict of some sort. Maybe she's spending it on gambling, whatever. He doesn't say like it's a shopping addiction, but anything that takes money out of the family pot, and especially when it's not agreed upon by the family, okay, the 2 adults, involved, or in some relationships now, 3 or 4 adults. Hey, I don't care on this channel, okay? Live your best life, all right? But the adults that are financially responsible for the household, if you are not on the same page, I'm be honest with you, okay? And I'm not saying this because I got dumped and left and all of that with my divorce, all right? No secret on this channel. But there is one very large silver lining for me. I was able to get my finances in order. Now, I'm not going to blame and say one person was at fault for the finances. I was no financial expert, okay, when I was married. All right. I was more of the saver, and we can kind of tell because when I got divorced, I immediately started doing just that, holding on to money. So that was in me all along. But it can be very hard to do that, if next to impossible, if you are with someone who doesn't see money the same way. I was in a relationship, will not say which one, okay, years back. And the person that I was dating at the time came home with a $500 vehicle a month for years and years commitment that I had no idea about. See, that sort of thing. Okay. Thousands and thousands of dollars. Went in to go buy a $300 part to put in the vehicle. And I literally get a call years ago and was told, hey, just bought a vehicle. Won't say what type because it's not important. And I was like, what's the monthly pay? $500. I had no idea. We just got ourselves into a $40,000, $50,000 vehicle. See, if you want to guarantee poverty, stay with someone who does not respect money. And that does not mean, oh, you guys are all just thinking about the money. You're all living for the money. No, but talk to anybody who's in their 50s. Hey, I'm 58. Talk to anybody who's in their mid 50s with not two shekels to rub together. And they're calling in going, I'm not sure. I'm 55, 58, 61 years old and I've got nothing. Money is not important until you actually need it. So let's see here. 2025, things out of control, 10 active loans. I've been there. Bankruptcy one, all on credit cards. You could lie. You could have made wallpaper in my room probably with the credit cards. I mean, that's a little facetious there, but work with me. 10 credit cards or active loans. Daily interest at 10%. And this is the problem sometimes, guys. When you're with someone who does not respect money and their financial choices are affecting you, guess what? They don't respect you either. This Reddit article is titled Over $80,000 in Loans. I want to default or find other options. I have cosigners. I'm at a loss and need advice. Well, it ran 2 years ago. I believe we have a lot to learn from it. I found this Reddit group about a year ago and I've been studying it like mad. I'm 24 years old and I graduated from the university in 2022. Like most, I took out private loans as an 18 and 19-year-old to pay for school. My first loan was through Wells Fargo, now First Mark. My second loan was actually through Common Bond First Mark. Both loans are under different accounts and companies essentially. I have cosigners for both loans, and I know neither of these people would be willing to deal with the calls and letters begging for payment. I am desperate at this rate. I have zero savings. I have a bad car. I rent, and I still have no money left over after shelling out monthly payments to these companies. My federal loans are on forbearance right now. I'm not super worried about those because of the income plans and options for repayment. Plus, those are so much less than my private loans. Both private loans are nearly $30,000. I made some payments in school while I had a stable job to try to get it quick. I have a stable job now, but I barely make $2,400 a month, which covers rent, and then all my loan payments. I'm left with nothing each month. I want to go to grad school. I want kids someday, and I want to just live my life without these sharks coming at me. I've considered strategic default, but I'm scared about my cosigners and what would happen to them. I am at a loss and I feel alone. Need advice? Should I get a lawyer? I live in Washington State. I currently work for the Department of Ecology. I worry about wage garnishment, credit scores. I feel like I have nothing going for me and I don't feel smart enough to figure this out on my own. I've researched the Debt Collective and so many other resources, but I don't feel like I'm coming up with any solution. Anything would help. As you know, I read these articles in depth for the first time with you. I pretty much go on the titles and do a quick skim. I'm going to actually go through this a little bit piece by piece because this Reddit article actually has a lot of things that I hope to teach you about, but also just simply give you food for thought. Okay. So, for those who may be unfamiliar with student loan debt, as far as some of the legal stuff as to what you can and cannot expect with cosigners and and private versus federal loans, as you know, you always want to go federal. I really am of the belief that if you are going into private student loan debt, it's because you have either used up all your federal money and you are tapped out broke. And now you're going to go to the loan sharks. And yes, I understand federal money can also be considered loan sharking, but for all intents purposes, okay, private is so bad it makes federal look like a perfect angel. So by the time you've hit by the time you've hit private loan borrowing, you are flat broke because you have borrowed everything you can from the federal after your parents' wages have been factored in, maybe your income, all of that stuff, scholarships, whatnot, and you're still broke. That is too much college. You most likely cannot afford it. Some can, yes, but I think for the majority of people, tapping out all their federal plus going into private. So that to me, when someone says they have private loans, I say, let's see what you do with your federal. And usually it's run up. Or you go into private loans because you just don't understand student loans. And to you, they were one and the same. And I'm sure that's happened to plenty of people. okay, 17, 18-year-olds, even 19 and 20, okay, going to school, thinking they're all the same. You always want federal, and you always want to try to stay with the same bank. Try not to bounce around to different banks if you possibly can. And the reason is so when you consolidate these loans down the road, which most of, most students will do, you just go to one bank. So that's why don't go about little bouncing around as possible. But let's break this down here. Okay. 24 years old. Now, they're $80,000 in loan debt. They say they want to default or find other options. Let's see here. Graduated in 2022, so just 3 years ago. And oddly enough, my loan was through Wells Fargo. I was supposed to pay Wells Fargo $500 a month from the ages of 38 to 68. I was on a, no, excuse me, to 62. I was on a 25-year plan. I just feel so stupid about that. I barely have words for myself. Okay. So I've been there. I get it. And mine was forgiven for 110,000 in 2022 after I taught for 16 years. Let's see here. And I still feel that forgiveness today. I still feel the relief of having the student loans off of me. So I understand this person's position. This is the interesting part. I have co-signers for both loans, and I know neither of these people would be willing to deal with the calls and letters begging for payment. All right. Those of you who are thinking of co-signing for a boyfriend, girlfriend, friend of a friend, whatever. If you become a co-signer, just by you co-signing, you are saying, I am willing to deal with the calls, the letters, the debt. Co-signers, unfortunately, you don't get it both ways. You don't get to say, hey, I'm a co-signer, but don't bother me with the bill. No, when you co-sign, it is as good as you bought the car, the house, the student loan, the vacation trip. It's as good as you saying, I assume the debt. And I don't think co-signers think about this often enough. I think co-signers oh yeah, I want to help my friend out. Oh, but I love this person that I'm dating. And we are engaged to be married. We're not actually married yet. You see? So what winds up happening is people co-sign in the, the co-signer wants to make the person happy, usually that they're co-signing for, because it's someone that they care about. But you cannot, and maybe even the redder is a little bit naive about this, I'm willing to bet, okay? When someone says, well, my co-signers don't want to deal with the calls and letters begging for payment, you're agreeing to deal with it. You are agreeing that if the person you backed, if that person doesn't pay, you agree to take on the collection calls, pay the late fees, the overdraft fees, the above the credit limit fees. You agree to pay the bill as if you had initiated that transaction to begin with. Always remember that. Let's see here. Zero savings. For those who wish to co-sign, remember, you're typically co-signing for someone who has zero savings. So you cannot, if you choose to co-sign, you cannot get mad at the person whose loan you backed and go, well, I don't understand why you didn't pay the bill. I just signed up to be your co-signer. Ah, yes, but you signed up to pay the bill if they couldn't, wouldn't, or refused to pay it. Think about how many co-signers there are paying the bills of people who actually have the money to pay the bill. They just choose not to. Oh, the guy that I was dating with, I mean, I make up story, okay, not my guy, okay. Oh, the guy that I was dealing with, he makes a really good income. I co-signed on his car, house, you name the item, and he just won't pay for it, even though he makes six figures or he makes enough to pay it off. Why would he pay for it? People who have bad intentions, they get someone to back the bill for them. And even though they be making money to the moon and the stars and you broke, you chose to co-sign. So when she says here, I think it's a she, I'm not quite sure. I think it's a she. I could be wrong. Okay. I have zero savings and a really bad car and rent. After rent, I still have no money left. Yes, that is the type of person you are co-signing for. For all the bad mistakes I've ever made, I have never co-signed for anyone and I never will. And no one will ever co-sign for me. Well, my mother did for a $1,700 car when I was about 21 years old. And I paid it off faithfully because if you know my mother, you are not messing that payment up. So anyways, that was decades ago. That's the only time I've ever had a co-signer. And she got through the credit union. Of course, I paid it off promptly. Let's see here. The Redditor says, I'm not super worried about the federal loans because of the income plans and options for repayment. Wrong attitude. Oh, by the way, happy Thursday night, folks. Wrong attitude. You should be worried about it. See, The problem is this Redditor, who we can tell is young and a bit naive. We've all been there. So we're not hating or shaming on that. Okay. Don't think for a minute that I'm doing that. They should be worried about those because of the income plans. Because I can pretty much guarantee you that this Redditor is going to do what? They're going to go for the minimum payment plan. And that minimum payment plan is going to cause the bill to increase over time because the minimum payment is not going to be enough to cover the interest, much less dip into the principal. This is the type of person that is going to be wishing, praying, and hoping for the absolute lowest amount possible. And don't forget, the student loan people are more than happy to give you that low amount. In fact, they will give you zero and just keep tacking on the interest. So when I hear a Redder say, I'm not super worried about the federal loans because of the income payment plans, because of the income plans and options for repayment, well, unless the Redder can pay it off in 10 years, I think there's probably going to be a problem. Let's see here. Plus, so much less than my private loans. Both private loans are nearly $30,000. That's about 60 grand. So about half the price of my condo. You've heard me say this, guys, for about every $100,000, expect about $1,000 payment. Ballpark. Okay. And we're not assuming you're going for a private loan with 16% interest. Okay. But on federal loans in general, I'm just giving a real general, yours could be $100 higher, maybe even 200, could be $100 lower. But just in my own experience with my own debt and stuff, okay, my payment was supposed to be $950 a month for a $110,000 student loan. I know, horrible. It grew from 85 to 110 over 16 years. But instead, my student loan payment came to about $360. Yeah, isn't it amazing? We know the details of our student loan bills, okay? Like $365. And I didn't care because I was on PSLF and I was on track for loan forgiveness. So I knew the interest was going up. But here's the kicker. I wasn't aware about how student loans really worked and that the interest was going up till probably 3-4 years after I had my student loan. So while my student loan was around for 16 years, the first 3-4 years, I was a dumb brick. I really, to this day, cannot believe that I was as stupid as I was on student loan debt. I was just concerned about the monthly payment. It never, and this, and guys, and I consider myself smart, intelligent. You're smart and intelligent, okay? But a lot of the smart and intelligent people have done dumb moves. I never, ever even concerned myself with what the total bill is. Oh, okay, Carrie, you get these 2 master degrees, you're going to wind up with an $85,000 student loan. That's not how my mind was reading it. My mind was simply reading it as, okay, what's the payment going to be per month? Stupid. So this Redditor here is in the exact same position, okay, with their 80,000. In fact, they have almost the same amount that I had. Of course, I had mine, 16 years ago, but this $80,000 debt. They have a stable job, barely make $2,400 a month. How many college students went to that ritzy school, got that extra degree because they were told if you get this, you're going to make all this money? Stop falling for it, people. Stop. $2,400 a month. You can live on that with a roommate, probably. Matter of fact, you might even be able to $2,400. You could even do that by yourself, but it's going to require some pretty modest living, but it can be done. But you see, the problem is when you put all the student loan debt on top of it, now it makes it impossible. Student loan debt, credit card debt, wage garnishments. These are things that will kill your budget. And I know you know this, okay? But we just have to stop from it and really, really think. When you're picking a school and you're deciding what, program to enter and stuff, guys, you got to think, okay, I'm going to sound negative Nancy here for a minute. You have to think in terms of almost worst case scenario. Okay. As in the counselor said, the admission school counselor says to you, hey, and you're going to walk out, and you're going to land an $80,000 a year job just fresh out of school at 22. Why don't you cut that figure in half and ask yourself, could you pay the bill if that figure were cut in half? If the only way you think you can pay your student loan bill is to go into la land and do whatever the creditors tell you you're going to make, no problem majoring in basket weaving because you're going to come out making $100,000 because, everybody needs a basket weaver, right? So the stable job, $2,400 a month, it can be stable. But if you want to know how to make your finances unstable, get yourself into a whole lot of student loan debt, non-bankruptable. That's the good thing about all the other debt. Yeah, you can buy too much house, car, credit cards, and you can have that come to Jesus moment and start all over again. I wouldn't recommend doing it twice like I did, but that's another story. Okay. They're left with nothing each month. Yeah. Every student loan borrower who has ever taken on too much debt and realized they can't even pay the minimum payment, like I said earlier, to get past the principal, excuse me, to get past the interest and into the principal, we're always left with nothing each month. It was a financial game changer for me to actually wind up having my student loan forgiven. And to this day, I get down on my knees every night after I put on my Estee Lauder beautiful perfume that I waited 20 years to buy, that I bought just before Thanksgiving, okay, with my YouTube shekels, right? I get down on my knees. Well, maybe not my knees because my knees have arthritis, but I do say a prayer darn near every day saying, thank you, the great God above, because I'm telling you, it was the financial game changer. So I understand how destructive student loans can be. They will kill your budget. You can make great money, and all of a sudden that student loan is there, and all of a sudden you realize what you're making, you don't get to keep any of it. Tons and tons, millions of people with student loans. The writer says here, I want to live my life without these sharks coming at me. Guys, we have to think about this in advance. Millions of student loan borrowers want to live their life. And for those who can't see the screen, the writer wrote that in caps, live my life. But I learned something the hard way, and it would not have destroyed my retirement because I retired in 10 years with a 30-year pension, but it would have definitely, carrying that student loan debt would definitely put a serious ding in the overall retirement. Because even if they had garnished it at 15%, you got to keep in mind over the next 10 years, that student loan is just going to get bigger and bigger. As they say, it's compound interest, but in the negative. So instead of earning interest on the interest, and you're like, oh, great, it's like earning more debt on top of more debt. So what started out for me as an $85,000 student loan grew to 110 over 16 years. Well, this 110 was just going to keep building like a snowball. It was just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. The debt was going to get bigger. But when someone says, I want to, in big capital letters, live my life without these sharks coming at me, guys, we have to be more responsible, myself included, okay? And we have to realize we have to think of this before we take on the debt. And let's get real here. We can't say that every single student who took on college debt that they couldn't afford was not told by their parents or a friend, okay? They were not warned, this might be too much debt. You might not want to go to this private school. But many people who took on the debt, really, they were so dead set on, this is the school I'm going to go to. This is the program I'm going to major in. So they went ahead and got that $350,000 dental, what is it, orthodontist degree, whatnot. Well, I think an orthodontist is kind of a surgeon. I'm thinking like dental hygienist, just some of those ridiculous degrees to like do dentistry that just seem out totally, to me, they seem totally absurd for what a dentist should have to pay to be a dentist. But I love my dentist. So this live my life without the sharks coming at me. You got to think about that in advance. The strategic default. Guys, there is no such thing as strategic default on a student loan, okay? None. Here's what happens if you do the strategic default. If it's federal loans, they're just going to go after your bank account. See, all these people, and I don't really hear the chant today, but you get people going, we're not going to pay our student loans. Power to the people. The federal government don't care. They're just going to go straight to your bank account, and they don't need to give you notice, and they don't have to get a court order, okay, like private debtors do. But even those private debtors, I guarantee it to you, they will get that court order and they will garnish your account. There is no such thing as a strategic default. I'm assuming what they're thinking of is like when you get a house and people will strategically default on their mortgage, because unfortunately, it's not until you're actually 90 days behind that they can give you any sort of assistance. So people strategically default on a mortgage, and maybe it does and maybe it doesn't help them. I don't see student loans anywhere near like that. There is no such thing as strategic default. I'm scared about my cosigners. What would happen to them? Forget that. The cosigners, that's their responsibility. You see, here's the thing. You are the one that asked someone to sign. That sucker that signed off on your student loan debt. I'm sorry, but they're suckers. If you're a cosigner, you're a sucker. Okay. Great if you co-sign and the person pays it all back. But I think for the majority of co-signers, they're suckers. I would consider myself a sucker if I co-signed. So the writer writes, I'm scared about my co-signers. What would happen to them? Too little, too late. As a matter of fact, I would tell the Redditor, guess what? When you and your co-signer decided to sign off on this debt, you were each willing to take on your own responsibility. So being scared about what's going to happen to your co-signers, sorry, the kettle and pot are already black. The water is already boiling. Not much you can do about it. So, the phrase, calling the kettle black, something like that. Okay. In other words, there's nothing you can actually do now that's going to save your cosigner other than you paying off the bill. And I think in this case, that scared about the cosigner, what would happen to them? Well, that's the cosigner's responsibility to worry about. See, this is the thing, folks. When you decide to be a cosigner, you are agreeing that you went out to go purchase that degree yourself. Oh, you didn't do that? That wasn't your intention? You thought someone else was going to pay for it? Because we've even done stories where parents have been upset because their child didn't pay back the debt. Exactly. I'm at the age of my life at 58. If I give you money, it's yours to keep. I will no longer ask people to pay me back. Actually, I've never really lent money, so I can't exactly say, no one's ever really asked me. I don't offer it up. But if I were to give somebody money, it is theirs now to keep. I'm over the, you need to pay me back. Therefore, I wouldn't give you any more than what I could actually afford. So you want me to sign off on your 80,000? Remember, this is $80,000 student loan, which is still around and is still in debt and all of that. Okay, it's not going anywhere. If I don't have $80,000 laying around just to give you, here's my retirement plan. Not going to happen. At a loss and feel alone, I think a lot of student loan borrowers feel that. That's why social media exists. Lots and lots of company. So, anyways, I just thought that was interesting. Yeah, the solution: pay the bill. I know it's not one we want to hear. All right, 3 more stories. Let's see. 100K. It's energy night tonight. Okay, 100K in student loans. Am I screwed for life? Let's take a look here. Oh, there's another one 2 years ago. All right, here we go. Hi, throwaway account. I guess that's just a fake account they use. All right. I just graduated from college where I took out loans for tuition, plus helped pay for rent. I did work in college, but the area where I was and situation wise, I couldn't make rent with everything I was doing in college. My parent/cosigner showed me the amount the other day, and it was $100,000 total, an actual appalling amount. I didn't realize it would cost this much. And in the dark about it, since my parent just handled the loans, my parents weren't able to contribute anything money wise. I tried applying for scholarships and financial aid during university, but the school has so many students, they don't give much out unless you're truly like number one, meaning you're the top of the class. Am I just screwed for life? I'm going to grad school, and that's paid for by the school in a STEM field, but not a lucrative, always high paying one. But I feel like after that, when I have to start paying the loans, I'm going to be in a difficult situation. I just feel so stupid for not being financially aware earlier. They're mostly private. Oh, sweet Jesus. And a couple federal. Is there any help or advice, anything I can try to start doing? I'm just completely lost and confused and angry. All right. Let's see here. Then update. I already know that bad choices were made and I put too much trust into others, that being the parents. I don't need to be told that I'm basically too stupid for college. Worked last night, then went to bed and woke up to comments. All right. Well, I don't think there's anyone who's been in severe student loan debt that hasn't blamed themselves. I mean, I look back and I can't believe that I never asked, what is the total bill? I never looked and really tried to think about, okay, at the time I was in a job that was making about $30,000 a year. I was married. And I think sometimes when you're married, not all the time, okay, but I think sometimes when you're married, one reason a married person might, not saying this is the only reason, but one reason a married person might overlook, how much student loan they're taking out is because there's another partner. So in my world, when I heard about $350 for student loan, I remember going in my head, okay, that's less than $200 each. We good. See, I'm just saying that's one thing that if you are married, you could possibly fall into that trap. And then, of course, the marriage broke up because, he wound up leaving. So no, I didn't push him out. Okay. He just, it wasn't the right relationship for him. So, but at the time that I was in the marriage, I never stopped to say, hey, Carrie, if the marriage were not to work, could you handle an $80,000, no, excuse me, $85,000 student loan debt at $350 a month? And here's what screwed up. I thought about that with kids. Yeah, I don't have children, but one of the things I thought about with kids is, if the marriage were to end, could I afford having, one, two, three, four, five kids? In other words, I thought that out. Okay. But I didn't do it with student loan debt. Well, student loan debt was like, bring on the dollars. We're all good. Okay. So let's see here. $100,000 total. The parent slash who's also the cosigner. I'm assuming it is my parent slash cosigner showed me the amount. I'm assuming this is not Parent Plus loans. Yeah, that's not really great parenting, but I hate to say it, the person who borrowed the loans is also at fault. This is, matter of fact, I would darner even say, okay, morally, I think the parents are more at fault because the parents are they're more of the adult in the situation. I know people say 18 years old, you're an adult. I get it. But let's face it, a lot of people are not financially literate at that age. And as you've heard me say, they haven't even paid off a bill yet. So they go from high school and parents paying for it, and then they get into college and the federal government pays for it. And then only then they get kicked out, put on their rear end, and then go, oh my God, there's no more money coming in. So in my opinion, the parents are more responsible for the fact that they did not guide their child, the Redditor, they did not guide their child into really understanding what student loan debt is and how much they were borrowing. But the student loan person, the Redditor, is also responsible. Now, there was a point here. What was I wanting to make here? Are they just messed up for life? Yeah, you potentially can be. Look, I'm not going to sit here and say, "Oh no, $100,000, you all good. Live at your parents' house and you'll be fine." I don't know. $100,000 if you're not making very much money, and you could live at your parents' house. And here's the depressing part: living at your parents' house, and all your money needs to go to the student loan bill. That's what I would say. Live at home. They say here that they want to go to grad school and that they're getting it paid for by the school. I'm gonna give you my honest opinion. For you get grad school, get a job and start paying off the debt. Yeah. Because it's my suspicion. They say here they're going to grad school. So does this mean grad school is going to pay everything? Lock, stock, and barrel, your food, your housing, your education, or are they only paying for part of it? And if they're only paying for the education part, are you living at home while this is going on? In other words, if this grad school is going to cost the Redditor even more money, and I suspect it's going to, it's just that's my suspicion, unless they're going on full ride scholarship, then I hate to say it, but they might want to reconsider, going back to school for grad school. So, anyways, that's interesting on this part. And I know that, and actually, but guys, I can see it both ways. I can see where someone says, hey, you know what? Go to grad school, get the STEM thing. But see, by their admission, okay, STEM is not always a high paying one. So, what are you going to lose? 2 years in school when you could be making money outside of school? It's just something to think about. And these mostly private loans and a couple federal, you have to kind of chuck when they say there's anything I can do. Yeah, not drop, but don't go to grad school and start working and live at home. That's what you have to do. These are answers that people don't like. Okay. But it's something that we have to face. Story 3. I find that 4 Reddit stories is just wonderful. So story 3. Remember, I'm reading these through with you guys. Like I said, I just skim it usually for length and the year and whatnot. But I don't care about the year. Okay, here we go. 4 years ago. Ooh, this is a well, not late night. This is we're going into the past here. But here's the cool thing about debt. It don't matter. I could read you a debt story from 50 years ago and how, they tried to budget and it didn't work. We can learn from it. My ex stopped paying her student loan. I co-signed. What are my options? Yes, I know co-signing was a stupid idea. I was apprehensive at the time, but we were engaged to be married and didn't think it would actually get approved, but it did. Let's just stop right there, family. We're going to stop right there. I was apprehensive at the time, but we were engaged and married and didn't think it would get approved. Do not ever put yourself in a financial position where you're going, I'm happy to co-sign for you. Because in the back of your head, you're going, oh, this will never work. But you did it because you want to stay in good graces with someone. So in this case, the Redditor wanted to stay in good graces with the fiance. The private student loan was about 17,000, but is now up to 18,000. I've asked her to pay it. Okay, so it's a guy Redditor. I like to know when the sexes, it helps. I've asked her to pay it so it doesn't affect my credit. She says she is, and then I get calls about late payments. My credit is tanking, and since we split over a year ago, I can't really afford to pay that as well. It's about $600 past due, which I also can't afford. My own financial status isn't great at all, which is why I can't really take on another bill when I can barely afford my own. I only make 60,000 and she makes 90,000. What are my options? Pay the bill. Um, Something I meant to say on the last one that we just saw. I'm not going to flip the screen, but on the last one we just saw about the 100,000 and the parent co-signed. I meant to tell you on that one, the parents didn't have the money either. Guys, let me tell you something. If I can pick one important like you to get from my, do not co-sign ever. That's rule one. And do not co-sign ever when you yourself don't have the money to pay the bill. And if you forget one rule, go and see the other rule. Okay. So yeah, I really can't afford to pay that. So why'd you co-sign? Yeah, something to think about. Well, we co-signed because we wanted to be the nice person. We didn't want to tick off somebody. Somebody else said that they would pay the bill later for us. Don't co-sign. My own financial status isn't great. I only make 60. So guys, when you sign for your ex, and if they don't pay it, you're on the hook. Love, marriage, and dating, exes or not, you are on the hook. And for God's sakes, I agree with Ramsey. Don't ever get a house. Matter of fact, I'd rather have you get a house with someone than get a student loan bill with someone. If I had to pick which one, I would rather deal with an ex. Would I rather deal with the ex with the house or the student loan? The house every time, because I can simply bankrupt the house on my end. I can simply file bankrupt and go, whatever. I'm going to take the credit score hit, for a couple of years. And no, it doesn't last 10. Bankruptcy don't even last 10. I know they say it stays in your record. Yeah, great. You'll be getting solicitation offers probably within 6 months, if not sooner, of filing bankrupt. And you know why you get that? Don't go run into the mail to go check the solicitation offer. They do that. They give you solicitation offers right after you file bankruptcy because they know you can't file again for 10 years. So it gives them that much more teeth when you repeat the bad habits that got you into bankruptcy 1, and then you do it again in bankruptcy 2, like I did. My first one was for credit cards. The second one was for a car. So it's interesting. I can't afford to pay the bills to pay the bill. Then you should never co-sign. And the bill is $600 past due. Do not co-sign. All right, let's look at the fourth one. What time are we running? 31 minutes. The night is young. Okay. My daughter defaulted. Oh, this is going to be a good one. 7 months ago, family. You think, I wonder if I have ADHD. I mean, I got up this morning and I exercised at 7:30 a.m. Then I went and did a full day of middle school. Then I did my little aftercare, childcare job. Now, it doesn't last that long, but I did that. Came home, did some laundry, and now here I am on YouTube with you fine people. My daughter defaulted on $125,000 private loans I co-signed. Oh, gee. Okay. I co-signed. Okay. I co-signed on $120,000 worth of student loans for my daughter. Last year, she defaulted. And before I caught wind of it, they were 6 months past due. I tried talking just to her, and she told me she would call and make payment arrangements. When I ran into her at events, she cried and told me she was sorry, that she would take care of it, yada, yada, yada. I'm reading verbatim. Finally, I contacted the student loan company, and they refused to make arrangements with me. They started contacting my current wife and skip tracing by contacting friends. I had enough. My current wife texted her and let her know that Sally Mae had been contacting her and that it would be great if she could just take care of it and that it would start affecting the whole family. My daughter, who doesn't really know my wife well, responded to my wife with one simple phrase. It starts with the letter F and ends with the letter U. Ooh, he co-signed. Okay, I'm stepping away from the article a minute. He co-signed for a daughter that would talk to his wife like that. Oh, I'm telling you, that would burn me. That would burn me to no end. And guess what? There ain't nothing he can do about it. He burned himself by signing on her $125,000 private student loans. And of course, because they're private, there is no loan forgiveness in it. Sitting in my chair. Oh, by the way, somebody asked where I got my head bow. It's on Amazon. I will put a link inside the comments. No, I don't sell anything, but somebody did ask earlier and I responded to them personally. And I figured other people might want to know. It comes in red and green and pink. I've got almost all the colors of the rainbow. I'll try to remember to do that. All right. I decided to get in touch and I started a group text with her two adult sisters. Oh, in other words, the Redditor's daughter that owes $120,000 on the student loan, more than the purchase of my condo by $20,000, is going to drag the whole family. This is what happens, people, when you cosign. All right. So I decided to get tough and I started a group text with her two adult sisters. Oh, that's mature. Her brother and her mother, my ex-wife, and their grandmother, who also loaned her money. I told them in the group chat what she had done and how she was ignoring her responsibilities. I was then accused of airing her private affairs and basically told I was not a nice person. And the worst part of their entire existence, the ex-wife also supported the kids in this negative conversation. The offending daughter, the one who owes the $120,000 student loan, during the group chat contacted Sally Mae and made arrangements and took about 5 minutes while in the chat, lowering the $1,500 payment to $550. Fast forward 1 month, recognizing that I could not trust my daughter to not default again, I decided that I needed to consolidate some of my debt and sell my car so that I could always have the amount of the loan on the ready in case she defaulted again. And I needed to have to sell my Challenger. That must be a car. I made the difficult decision to take back another car I was paying on that I was letting my other daughter use so I had something to drive and get to work. It was paid off and I had not turned over the title to her. It just made fiscal sense that I make this difficult decision. When I made this decision, my ex-wife and all of my kids told me that I was making my other daughter pay for the daughter who had defaulted on loans mistakes. They're kind of right about that. I tried to explain that this is an adult decision that I have to make, and sometimes we don't like these things, but they have to be done. Now, none of my kids will talk to me, and the ex-wife fosters that. She has uninvited me to my youngest daughter's graduation party and basically told me I'm not allowed to be at any event that's at her house when only a few months previously I had a good relationship with them. I was not the best father or husband when I was married to their mother, but I always was there for their events, always attended their games, birthdays, plays, you name it. I never raised a hand to them and always supported them. Their mother was always the best friend and typically made me the bad guy, so that is the role they see. All right, here, I think this is the last story. So we have $120,000 worth of student loans. I'm going to back up the dad. Yeah. And the reason I'm going to back up the dad, dumb as it was to sign on $125,000 private student loans. Okay, we're going to put that aside. We know it was dumb. He really doesn't have the money. The reason I'm going to back up the dad is the father is doing the responsible thing. He looked around and he said, all right, I have one child who is clearly behind on her student loans. And if her payment, here's the kicker. Okay. Her student loan debt is $125,000. Her monthly payment is $550. Guess what? That student loan's not going anywhere. You're sitting on a $125,000 student loan. You should be looking at a payment of probably nothing less than $1,300 to $1,400 a month. Check that out. I forgot this line. Okay, so I know my numbers. I may not know much about math, but I know about student loans. To pay off the student loan, I'm assuming within a 10-year mark, is a $1,500 payment. It makes total sense. Mine was $110. Okay. And the payment was about $950 a month, right around there to $1,000. This loan is bigger. So to pay it off in 10 years, $1,500, $550 doesn't even cover the interest. I rest my case with the court. The father, I hope, is realizing that this bill is going to just go up. Guys, $1,500, that's income based. And it's easy for me to know that. Because my payment on the 110 was supposed to be, like I just said, around $950, $1,000. My payment was $365 a month. That was income based. The bill kept going up. She's holding on to 125. So you got 25 grand more practically than what I have, respectively. Her payment's $550. That is income based. I really hope, and something tells me I'm probably not right. This was just 7 months ago. I hope the father realizes this bill's never going away. It's only going to go up. But I support him because of the fact that he's selling what he needs to make sure this debt can be paid. The problem is I don't think it's enough. These two cars aren't enough, from what I understand, to actually pay off the bill. So if dad's going, well, I set my daughter straight because I outed her to the whole family, that was probably a little bit middle schoolish behavior, but hey, it is what it is. Okay. I outed her to the whole family, and now she's lowered her bill from 1,500 to 550. All is good. All is not good at all. So if he wants to assure that this can be paid off in 10 years, he needs to make up the difference between 550 and $1,500 by and that $1,500, that's interest and principal over 10 years. I'm pretty much sure I'm right based on what my student loan was. And she goes, I can't afford that. So they said, no problem. We'll knock it down to 550, which just, that's expensive. So dad's not out of the woods. I don't trust my daughter to not default. Whenever you co-sign, always assume they're going to default. Always. They're going to default. What are you going to do about it? I don't have the money to do anything about it. Don't co-sign. Okay. So let's see here. To take back another car. Yeah. And as far as one daughter being upset because her car is taken also, hey, just like you said, tough decisions have to be made. Daughter needs to go get her own car and needs to quit relying on dad. I'm kind of willing to suspect that part of the reason dad signed off on this $125,000 catastrophe of private student loans, I'm willing to bet he probably felt sorry. There was some parental, I've been a horrible father, because he admits it by his own, what he says. I've been a bad father. And so I think part of it was guilt, debt. It's like, okay, I'm willing to go into debt for you because, I really sucked as a father and, I wasn't a great, husband to your mother, all of that. So I'm willing to bet you part of it is guilt, debt. But overall, I agree with his actions to sell the Charger. I do think it was a little bit middle schoolish to tell the whole family, but would I have done it? I don't know if I would have. This Reddit article is from 6 months ago. It's titled Already Difficult Relationship. Wife Spent Life Savings Gambling and Lied About It. We've been married together 15 years, have 3 kids. About 10 years ago, after the birth of our third child, I sat her down on the blue couch in our living room and explained to her that the level of meanness that she displayed during arguments was really hurting me, and that I thought we should seek diagnosis and or treatment for possible mental health issues. Basically, I said, something isn't normal here and it's hurting me. In the meantime, we had our life and our fights, and sometimes we're good and sometimes we're bad. She did very little to acknowledge my request. It has been a very slow process getting her to participate in therapy, and only in the last year has she been diagnosed with ADHD. However, couples therapy sessions have revealed that the therapist believes that there are other things going on, possibly including bipolar and or PTSD. Her childhood had some moments of extreme difficulty that no child should have to experience. She's shown no interest in pursuing additional therapy for this, despite my literally begging. About 9 months ago, she started taking meds for ADHD, which has helped reduce the frequency of the fighting because she spends less time either highly manic or highly depressed. Sleep deprivation is a real problem for her. She sleeps on average 4 hours per night and then crashes for 12 to 14 hours one night every week or so. Anyway, something happened. I got a notice via email that our checking account was overdrawn. I have always let her manage the money because she did a great job and everything was taken care of, at least as well as I could do it. I was involved in household banking stuff for roughly the first 10 years we were together, and she always did a wonderful job. So I just trusted her to keep doing that. After the email this morning, I logged into the bank account, and in the transaction history, I see hundreds of transfers from the account to her personal account, as well as a lot of payments to online gambling companies. Thousands and thousands of dollars. I didn't bother to try to total it up. I called her while I was at work, standing outside for privacy. I confronted her. She tried to deflect at first, but after some yelling, it comes out that she's been gambling online for a while. She says a couple months, but when I look further, it looks like since December. She has obviously told a lot of lies to cover this over the last 5 months. Trust was already in question, and the nature of our relationship was in a downward spiral due to fights and general hurt. I didn't expect this though. To me, this feels like the last straw. It looks like she spent somewhere in the vicinity of $55,000 since January 2025, almost all of it gambling online. She has a little bit of income, and some wins means she deposited $8,000 at that time. Essentially, she lost $45,000 in 5.5 months gambling. Not all of the money was ours. Some of it was her brother's, who's currently in prison, and she's been managing that. About $40,000 of the money was ours. She had a few $1,000s in variable collectibles, which she sold to try to cover up this last month when I almost found out. The bulk of that money spent was my paycheck and a severance package I received from a previous job. We are not wealthy, but up until this, we have managed money well enough that we get by on a single income. Right now, I can't even make the house payment without cashing out some savings. I haven't yet looked at the credit cards, but I'm scared of what I'll find there. Gambling addiction runs in her family, as does mental illness. I do not want to abandon her to her own problems, though I feel like I want to right now, as I just discovered this massive deceit this morning. But I'm not sure how I can be married to someone who I don't trust and who I can't get along with. My kids still need their mom no matter what. I hurt so much for them. Where do I go from here? I have been through this before in a previous marriage. She cheated, she took all the money, then tried to file a restraining order on me for made up abuse. And I don't feel like I can make an objective decision about anything right now. I'm at work for another 2.5 hours. Then I go to my other job, which is a volunteer. Eventually, I'll have to go home and deal directly with the impact this has on my kids. And I'm scared to death of letting them down. All right, hold on just a sec. For those who are seeing the screen, this cute little holiday mug, I just love it. I got it at Kirkland's here in Tampa. No, I don't sell stuff on this channel, but just in case anyone, wanted to see it all the way around, I think it's my little holiday treat. All right. Happy Friday evening, folks. There comes a point where you have to decide what is rock bottom. And I'm just going, even though I've never had a gambling addiction, those who are very familiar with this channel know that I have had, had a shopping addiction when I was in my 20s and 30s. It led to the first bankruptcy in my mid 20s for about $25,000. The vehicle that got bankrupted on in my 30s, it's almost 10 years later, was because I bought too much car. But let's focus on my experience with the shopping addiction and apply it to this. And we're going to be looking at a series of gambling addiction articles. So if you feel this is a sensitive topic for you, you might want to not watch this particular episode, which I certainly respect. I think if I look at my addiction, you have to decide for yourself what is rock bottom. And I think at times people forget that rock bottom doesn't just mean the addict has to make that decision as to, hey, I'm the addict. I've hit rock bottom. I need to find Jesus or whatever, okay, and change my ways. But it also goes for the innocent person, the person who, just like this guy here, and this is from 7 months ago. Close your eyes. I'm going to scroll to the top. Okay. The innocent party has to decide what is rock bottom, because sometimes we're so busy dealing with the person who's got the addiction and all the attention is put on them. Can I get you therapy? What medications do you need? Can I take you to your counseling appointments? Can you even hold a job? Now, fortunately for me, during my addiction, my shopping addiction, I was not married. I was in and out of couple relationships, but I wasn't married. This Redditor, and again, this is from 6 months ago, is going, and they're in their 40s, 47 and 45 years old. The Redditor is going to have to decide what his rock bottom is. And he says in the article, he goes, well, their kids need their mom. Sure. And guess what? You can be divorced and your kids can have a relationship with their mom. It will need to be monitored to make sure the kids don't fall into the same pattern that she has, and that the kids are physically and mentally safe. But let's put that aside, just as far as, well, their kids need their mom for a relationship. You can be divorced and your kids can still have a whole and hearty relationship with the parent. I am fully convinced of that. coming from my own divorced family. But when it comes to rock bottom, he says, and this is the part that was really telling for me. He says that he was in another marriage and it was the same type of thing where there was this financial deceit and all of that. This tells me kind of like someone who's attracted to alcoholics, dating an alcoholic because they were raised in an alcoholic family, even though they themselves may not be, but it's kind of what's familiar. He, in my opinion, is going to what is familiar. Kind of like, think of it like this, okay? When I finally started getting mentally free, mentally healthy, it was really foreign to me because my life had always been so much of, money mismanagement, not the greatest relationships, and nothing abusive or anything like that. Fortunately, there, I've been through enough. I didn't need that on top of it. Um, but it wasn't like, no one was hitting me or anything like that. Some psychological, yeah, but I think sometimes that just comes par for the course. But ultimately, he has to decide, are you going to keep going to what's familiar? Being debt free is unfamiliar. Matter of fact, I did a video when I became debt free about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. I don't even think it's been 2 years. It feels really foreign. Having something that's healthier and better than what you've been used to is so foreign. And it was really telling to me when he said, "Oh, well, I've been in this type of relationship before and she did the same thing." This is what he's familiar with. And so it's what he gravitates to. But at some point, he being the innocent person, and again, we're going with what is being said in this article. So we are going to assume he's the innocent person because that's all we have to go with. Ultimately, he's going to have to decide, when have you had enough? You're 40, excuse me, you're 45 years old. Are you going to let this woman take away your future finances, your future retirement? Because if you're going to let her do that, then she has all the power. See? And that's what he's gonna have to decide. This is one of those where you can tell someone, "Oh, this is a bad relationship, get out." And here's the kicker, he knows it's a bad relationship. He already knows it's not working. Hence why he's writing on Reddit. He says here, the couples therapy sessions, trying to keep from moving the screen here. Says here the couple therapy sessions, she's shown no interest in pursuing additional therapy. Guess what? Far she's considered the relationship's one and done. She's happy with the relationship just the way it is. So if he's not happy with the relationship, then they clearly have a disconnect. Something that I have learned over the years is don't be so afraid to end a relationship. What was my mother would say? It's better to be by yourself and alone than by yourself in a marriage. And I think what sometimes happens is people are afraid to end relationships because they're afraid of being alone. When in reality, once you step into that alone cycle, so to speak, you look back on the relationship and you go, oh my God, we were really dysfunctional. He's in a very highly dysfunctional relationship with a woman who sees, and it says here, she's shown no interest in pursuing additional therapy despite the begging. This does not work in a relationship. I can't be sitting there begging for you to become debt free, to manage yourself psychologically, to get a job, to not buy too much car, to not buy too much house, to not spend too much. I can't be sitting there spending my life begging for you to do something that will improve us when the only thing that you see is you. I'm not saying you literally. So to me, this relationship needs to go. She is not interested in pursuing anything. And see, and that's part of the issue with mental health also. The person who's mentally ill, when I was mentally ill, I didn't know I was mentally ill. Oops, sorry about that. I did not know that I was mentally ill because to the mentally ill person, everything's just fine. She here appears to have some mental health issues. The only key I will give, because I won't really just, not really, I will not divulge how bad my mental health was until after I retire, but I will say this. I went to a counselor. I was in my early 30s. I went to a counselor. Things were just falling apart. And the counselor was recommended to me when I'd gotten out of the hospital at the age of 27 for a total hysterectomy because of issues. And so the hospital set me up with a counselor. And I went to the counselor meeting, and all the counselor said was, "Carrie, you don't need a counselor, you need a psychiatrist." And that was all that was said. and the rest of it is history. So I understand to a great extent, to an extreme extent. I understand addiction, what is obsessive compulsive disorder. Okay. I understand going to a hospital because you're losing it on the side of the road and you wind up checking yourself into ER. I understand, you know, psychological medications and all of that. I get it. But I also understand that someone begging me to try to fix myself isn't going to fix it. If she is not begging to heal herself to save her relationship, then there is nothing he can do to salvage the relationship on his own. It's not going to work. So, because of this, her refusal to go to therapy, her inability to see beyond herself just how much it's damaging the relationship, I would sincerely say he needs to go home, pack up, probably take the kids with him if he can, and leave. And then deal with the courts with child support and visitation, all of that stuff. I'm just drawing from my own experience. Sleep deprivation is a real problem. Now, this is funny, not funny, but interesting. I only sleep about 5 hours a night, probably during the weekday. I don't sleep really long. And then I tend to crash for possibly on a weekend, I might crash for, 10 hours. I don't sleep 8-hour nights. Really, guys. Can you guys see me sleeping an 8-hour night? Really? Okay. I don't have the energy to sleep 8 hours a night, but I do sleep about 5. And then on the weekends, I might make it up a little, but not much. But the neat thing is that it's not because I'm highly manic or depressive. But I did get a sleep study thing done about 2 months ago. Need to see my doctor for that. But that's not because of depression. So really, he's in this marriage alone, and that is why he needs to leave. Sorry to be so depressing on a Friday night, guys. All right, let's see here. Let's go to another one. Again, I just pre-selected these, kind of looked at the dates and stuff, but dates don't really matter. But I do not read them in depth until I read it with you. Okay, so let's see here. I just found out my husband lost all of our savings on bad investments and gambling. I'm so heartbroken. I don't know what to do. This is from 2 years ago. Let's see what we can learn from it. I am so heartbroken and don't have anyone to turn to. This morning, I just found out that my husband of 14 years has lost all our hard earned savings to bad investments and gambling, and we have no money left. It all happened when I received an overdraft email from our bank. And when I asked him about it, he started making excuses that he just hadn't transferred from the savings account. I checked our account, and that's when I realized our $150,000 of savings had been completely depleted. I can't describe the gut wrenching feeling. It was as if someone had punched me in my stomach. These were hard earned money years and years of working to better our family's future and our kids. Our plan was to finally have a down payment for our house this year. We only have a few months of rent money left, but with this, I come to find out new credit cards, it's essentially a loss. So instead of saving, we are completely broke. I can't describe the devastation, the hurt, the betrayal that I feel. I wholly and fully trusted my husband. I never even checked our bank account because never in my mind did I ever think he would do such a thing. I've worked day and night just like he did to save and improve our family life. This is just not about the house payment, but in general, it's money for our whole family, for our little kids and their life and future. I am so heartbroken that the man I've been with for 18 years would betray me and the kids and then hid it all from me, then tried to cover it up and lie. I don't know what to do. Do I stay or do I leave? Okay. I'm going to read the update on this because this was an interesting enough story to me that I think the updates are worth reading. So here we go. Um, she says it gets worse. This is the update. There are loans and many, many credit cards that he hid from me. At first, he said it all happened in the last few months where he kept investing and doing online betting. Now I found out he opened loans, and this has been going on for 2 years. The savings account was depleted in the last few months. That's the one with the 150,000. So not only has he lost over 150,000, but also has all kinds of debt of over 150,000. I don't even know yet if this is the full truth as he refuses to give me his passwords to accounts, which make me believe he is hiding something else. I feel like I'm in a nightmare, all of our hopes and dreams crushed in a single moment. All the things we were working towards and all of our life memories just went down the drain. I know this is irreversible. I asked him to move out. How am I going to explain this to the kids? Now she gives another update, February 2025. I know it's been a while. I read through all of your comments and I appreciate the support. Here's what happened. I gave us another chance. Side note. Okay. Well, we will come back to that. Stay on course, Carrie. Stay on course. I gave us another chance. After long talks, I decided to give our marriage one more chance. I didn't want my kids, one of whom has special needs, to grow up without their dad around. If you are a parent with a kid with special needs, you know how things can get tough. I come from an abusive family, so I know what a broken family looks like. He is a good dad. His brother also decided to help pay our debts. So I stayed and decided to rebuild our lives together. But wait, so many of you told me that this may be just the beginning. A few months later, I randomly came across a little container with white stuff. You guessed it. He swore up and down he did it just once and then forgot about it and that he will never do it again. Things then were going well till recently when my mom passed away. I saw, let's say, I've been really down. It's been really a rough few months without her support. But wait, just a few days ago, I found another bag of white stuff. This time I told him to get out of the house and that I'm done giving him chances. He's been staying in a hotel now, and I'm looking at divorce lawyers. I can't believe this is happening. How do you end a 20-year relationship? Well, okay, so that's basically the end of that. How do you end a 20-year? Well, I was with my ex for 15 until he decided I wasn't the right partner for him. I think when you are, I mean, emotionally, yes, it's always difficult to end. And I don't care if you're together 10, 15, 20, 30, 40. Okay. Some people say, well, the longer you've been together, the harder it is. I'm going to say yes and no to a certain extent. I don't think it's always just, well, if you've been together 30 years, that's harder on you than if you've been together 10. I guess maybe from a mathematical standpoint, but I think when it comes to the pain of the heart, I don't think it matters. It's like trying to compare, whose wounds are worse. So to me, you're emotionally wounded, bleeding inside and out. So it's figuratively speaking. Okay. I can't dismiss your pain because your relationship was 5 years less than mine was, you see? So, I'm sorry, this is harder than I thought it was gonna be. Okay. In my opinion, if you really look at the damage or how fake perhaps your relationship has been, in other words, when the truth of your relationship comes out, I think it is easier to let it go. But the hard part for me is that that doesn't really happen immediately. It can take some time for it to come out. In other words, now that I've been divorced 13 years, I can look back on it. I was able to do it after about 2 years of being divorced. I was able to go, wow, we really did have the relationship that I thought we had. We really weren't on the same page. We really didn't see things the same way. Almost to the point of, maybe, he did a favor leaving me. I don't know. But what I do know is you realize that when one person doesn't want to be in that relationship anymore, when one person doesn't want to be there, the relationship's just as good as done. So, well, it's heartbreaking, just like we heard in the other story where, he's got kids and his wife is bipolar, PTSD, all of that stuff, and she doesn't want to get help. Look, you begin to realize your relationship never was what you thought. It's kind of like when people say, oh, but we had a great relationship. Apparently you did not. You thought you did, but apparently you did not. And here's the kicker. You probably knew you didn't, but a relationship can take years and years to break apart because everybody's busy playing their role. Everybody's busy. Like, don't rock the boat. Keep it just the way it is. But you realize your boat has splinters and holes all over it. When she said that she took her husband back, my 58-year-old self has taught me one of the ways you're going to save yourself, yes, being selfish. One of the ways you're going to save yourself is you're going to determine very early on, what are you willing to fight for in a relationship? It's like I said, what is your rock bottom? What is the point where you don't what is your line in the sand? You don't want to be there if they do this and this. The problem is in my relationship, just speaking for myself, my freaking line in the sand kept moving. Okay, yeah, okay, they did this, but I'll put up with that, and then they do that. No, and your that line in the sand keeps moving, but sometimes it moves. Oftentimes, it's moving in a way that's actually hurting you more and more. But you keep drawing that line in the sand because you're trying to save the relationship until pretty soon you don't even recognize yourself anymore, and perhaps you've even lost some of your dignity in the process. So when she says here, my husband lost all of our savings, but I tried to take him back. The guy went through more than $300,000, just according to this article here. $150,000 in the savings account, and then another 150 grand or so gambling. And as the writer said, that may not even be the full amount. See, but I can guarantee you, when they were first together as a couple, okay, the line in the sand that she had, it was not my spouse can look at white stuff on paper, wink, wink, okay, can look at white stuff on paper and can run up a $300,000 debt, and I'll still be there and I'll still give them a chance. But somewhere or another in the dysfunction of the relationship, that line keeps moving. That bar of what you're willing to, put up with keeps moving because you're trying to save it until pretty soon, like I said, you realize you don't recognize yourself. This is really sad because here you do have, from what we can tell, we can only take a face value. You have someone who thought they were going to get a house. Guys, this is why you got to pull those credit reports. And I know there are going to be people who think, oh man, you're all checking up on each other. Good, good. Because are you on the same page? A lot of this stuff can be discovered early with people pulling reports. And you sit down, we're going to have the quarterly or whatever meeting. I mean, I don't care, make one up. But it's when people sit there and they go, so trusted this person. But again, both people actually hold responsibility. You can't, just leave all the debt and stress on one person. She says here, I think she said they have a special needs child. Yeah, I'm sure that affects it as well because, I think special needs kids oftentimes they take more work. And sometimes I'm just amazed at how parents, especially, okay, single moms take care of special needs kids by themselves. I've seen some things that have just left me speechless. Like some of these single moms with special needs kids, they're like super women to me, literally, in the most respectful way, because I'm like, I don't know how they do it. So she says here they've been together for 18 years, betraying me and the kids. But is it possible that she also betrayed herself by not assuming responsibility of the finances? You got to remember, folks, whoever is in charge of the finances deals with the stress. Meaning, whoever deals with the finances, because they know what's going on, they're the ones who have the sleepless nights. You just sleep there like a baby because, you think someone else is dealing with it. And I said this in the other Reddit post, I think just earlier this week, if I remember correctly, both people are responsible for the finances. So she can throw shade, shame at her, I'm assuming it's going to be to be ex-husband on all of this, but she is just as responsible as far as it deals with the finances. The white stuff on paper, no, that she's not responsible for that. But dealing with the finances, and you know why I think sometimes people don't want to deal with the finances? Number one is it can be kind of painful, but it allows the person who doesn't deal with the finances, it allows them to have a happier life. Isn't it wonderful if you don't have to deal with the money and somebody else can have the sleepless nights and deal with the stress of it? See? So, yeah, this is definitely a end of the marriage road for that relationship. At least I think it should be. Let's see here. What else am I looking at? Oh, husband. Let's look at this one from 3 months ago, family. What time is it? It's running about 8:30 p.m. We are about 27 minutes in. The night is young. So glad you guys are here with me. All right. Husband relapsed into gambling. Lost over 100,000. Oh, sweet Jesus. Am I overreacting for considering divorce? I'm going to say immediately no. All right. 3 months ago, my husband, 32, and I, the female, 30, have been married for 2 years. About a year ago, I found out he had a gambling addiction. At that time, he lost around 60,000. He promised me he would never do it again, that he would fix things, and I tried to support him. I asked for full financial transparency so I could get things under control. I also encouraged him to see a therapist or seek professional help, but he didn't follow through. He refused to share his finances with me, and recently I discovered that he gambled again, this time losing another large amount, about the same as before. In total, he's now lost over $100,000 from gambling. On top of that, during our conversations, he's admitted he's also in credit card debt and only making minimum payments. I'm someone who is extremely financially responsible, and money management is very important to me. After the second incident, I decided to stay with my parents to have space to think. After a lot of back and forth, he's agreed to share his finances going forward. Right now, I'm seriously considering divorce. Part of me feels like that's the only realistic option, but another part of me worries I might be reacting. Am I overreacting and looking at things the wrong way? No. When your husband has a okay, having been a shopping addict, now I'm very lucky. I've been clean, sober, so to speak. Okay, I was never, I don't drink alcohol, but sober when I say in terms of shopping, okay, addiction. I have been clean for over 30, almost 25 years. So I consider myself cured, healed. But a part of me, just like anyone who's ever had an addiction, always is aware of what I'm doing, maybe even hyper aware to some extent. Okay. So somebody can be clean from gambling of 25 years, an alcoholic can be clean, a shopping addict can be clean, but it's always in the back of our mind. Not that we're going to relapse, but we just make sure, we just watch ourselves a little extra carefully. We make sure we're not doing things that would trigger it or anything else. Here, husband lost over $100,000. So my question to her is, how do you want to stick around till he loses another 100,000? Then you can be writing into Reddit, or better yet, calling the Dave Ramsey Show, which I'll probably be doing a reaction to, and you can tell us about how you stuck around with him because he lost the first 50,000, then he lost another 50,000, and you just tried to make this work one more time because you didn't want to think you were overreacting, and now you're $200,000 in the hole. If, like I've said, if you want to guarantee for sure that you will have a financially broken future, stick around with someone who's an addict that is not cured. I thank my lucky stars I was not married when I was in the height of my shopping addiction. She says here, she encouraged him to see a therapist, but he doesn't follow through. Of course, I was supposed to see a therapist for a period, actually, it was a psychiatrist for a period of time. Um, and then I quit. But believe it or not, in my case, I didn't quit because I wanted to quit. It's just this American medical system we have. When I lost a job, I lost my insurance. And then that's when all hell broke loose. Um, yeah, people who are mentally ill, they typically don't want to see therapists. Heck, I used to throw my medication down the toilet. 3, 4, $500 a month. I used to toss it down the toilet. Yeah. So when people are mentally ill, they don't see themselves as that. So you are the problem, not them. So when you stick around in a relationship with someone who is mentally ill, what you're really doing is you become the scapegoat for everything that goes wrong with them. Well, if you just hadn't stuck your nose in where it didn't belong, you would have known about the money. Oh, you're always overreacting. You see, you become the focus of the problem. And again, I was not in I dated and stuff, and I had a boyfriend or two, but I wasn't like in a serious relationship. There was no commingling of money or anything else. Otherwise, it would have been disaster. And I would not have blamed the guy for leaving me. In fact, I've expected the guy to have left me. Now, just for the record, in case anybody's wondering, my divorce 13 years ago had nothing to do with shopping addiction or anything else. That is a good thing. All right. So in that regard, that was good. Had nothing to do with that. Let's see here. He refuses to share your finances with you. Again, husband relapsed into gambling, lost over 100,000. He refuses to share his finances with you. Redditor, would you like to stick around till he loses another 100,000? See, if you want to know what an addict's future can be like, look at their past and see what they've done. And unless they have worked on themselves, I mean, gotten on their knees, found Jesus or whatever, they go to those counseling sessions, they involve you in certain parts of their healing. There are certain parts they should not involve you in. Okay, and that could be very hard also for somebody who wants to stick around with someone who's recovering from an addiction. You should not, as the so-called innocent person, you should not have your nose and constantly be asking, well, so what happened in counseling today? What happened? Don't do it. I'm telling you, don't do it. Just simply, did you get to your medical appointment today. Great. The end. Say nothing else. And I'm telling you that from firsthand experience. Don't be the person that's going, well, so what did you guys discuss? Tell me, what'd you talk about? You're not going to get the answer you want. Okay. Yeah, I'll tell you something. I love my late mother, had her issues. And one of the things that used to just tick the heck, I'm using the nice word, out of me is she would try to ask me, what was wrong. When really nothing was wrong. She just had a freaking depressed daughter, but there was really nothing wrong. And so I used to make up crap just to get her off my ass. Somebody said something mean to me at school. Oh, well, did you say anything back? No. Well, how could you have handled this better? And then we go through some stupid fake thing. And then she was like, and when she felt that I was cured and that the conversation had, that the problem was now solved and I could put a smile on my face again, then I'd be told to, go on my merry way. And I'd be thinking, what the bejesus, there was nothing wrong, but I was just simply depressed. Leave me alone in my depression. I'm laughing about it, but it's not funny. I'm laughing about it because I look back, it's like, God dang, how stupid. So the problem is sometimes when you choose to stay in a relationship with someone who really needs counseling, who really, really needs therapy, the whole reason I was telling you this, okay, is because they need to unearth whatever it is that's going on. There's a reason they have that addiction. There's something that happened. There's a trauma, most likely somewhere. No, I'm not trying to sound like Dr. John from the Ramsey show. I'm just giving you my own personal experience. There is something there that is undiagnosed. They need to fix it. But the problem is oftentimes I'm going to say that the person that they are married to, unfortunately, it's just the luck of the draw that you happen to marry somebody with a whole bunch of PTSD addiction issues that didn't come out until perhaps years later. I remember my psychiatrist told me that once. She said, she goes, this could have come out when you were 60 years old. Said it came out in my 30s. Thank you, Jesus. But the hard part is sticking with someone who's an addict, whether it's a gambling addict, shopping addict, whatever. If it's got OCD, all of that stuff. The problem is as the innocent party, you want to help them. You want to make them better because you want your relationship to be saved. And I can tell you 9 out of 10, I don't think it can be saved because to save the relationship, they must first save themselves. The person with addiction has to save themselves first. If they aren't willing to save themselves first, then they can't save the relationship. It's impossible. So my question is, how long do you as the innocent person want to stick around to watch this person go through their addiction? Okay, guys, I have to stop. This Reddit article titled, Am I the blank for pressing charges against my wife after she had a shopping spree on my credit cards the day after our wedding? This article ran on Reddit 5 days ago. My wife demanded I pay for her $47,000 shopping spree because, quote, that's what husbands do exactly one day after our wedding. We got married 3 weeks ago. I'm 34, she's 29. The wedding was small. Nothing fancy, about $8,000 total, which we split. The morning after our wedding night, I woke up to her sitting on the couch with her laptop, clicking through designer handbag websites, Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Prada, the works. I asked what she was doing, and she said, quote, just browsing for some things I need. Need turned out to be 4 purses, 2 pairs of shoes, and a wallet that cost more than my car payment. When I saw the confirmation emails on her phone later, she left it open on the counter. The total was around $12,000 on my credit card. The one I'd added her to as an authorized user because she said she wanted to build credit. I confronted her that night and she got really defensive. I'm your wife now. You're supposed to take care of me. That's how marriage works, she said. I said, we both work, we both contribute. She makes decent money as a legal assistant. We talked about finances before getting married and agreed we'd keep things mostly separate until we figured out a joint system. She stared at me like I just insulted her entire bloodline. I'm quitting my job, she said. What? I asked. I'm quitting, she said. I gave my notice yesterday. My last day is Friday. Husbands provide. That's what my dad did for my mom. That's what your job is now. End of quote. I was stunned. We'd never discussed this, not once. She'd always talked about her career goals, about making partner at her firm eventually. I asked her if this was some kind of joke, and she said, I'm not joking. I'm done working. You make enough money for both of us. I make about $90,000. Comfortable, but not support two people while one racks up luxury purchase money. Over the next 2 weeks, packages arrived daily. I'd come home to stacks of boxes, designer clothes, more handbags, shoes, jewelry, perfume that cost $400 a bottle. I checked our credit card statements and nearly had a heart attack. She'd maxed out the card I'd added her to. Then she'd somehow gotten access to three other cards, ones I'd had for years that I barely used, all maxed. $47,000 total. When I confronted her, she said I was being controlling and financially abusive, and that I clearly didn't love her if I was going to deny her basic happiness. I canceled every card, changed all my passwords, told her she needed to return everything or get a job to pay for it herself. She called her parents. They showed up at our apartment that same night. Her dad started screaming at me in the hallway, calling me a deadbeat and a manipulator. Her mom was crying, saying I tricked their daughter into marriage just to trap her. Her brother, who's 28 years old, got in my face and said if I didn't fix this situation, he'd make me regret it. I told them the truth, showed them the credit card statements on my phone, showed them the delivery confirmations, explained that she'd quit her job without discussing it and expected me to fund her lifestyle. Her dad said, so what? That's what husbands do. You provide. She takes care of the home. I said, she doesn't cook, doesn't clean, and has literally spent the last 2 weeks shopping online while I work 50 hours a week. Her brother shoved me, called me a liar. I told them all to leave or I'd call the police. They left, and my wife went with them. 2 days later, I got a call from her aunt, whom I met once at the wedding. She said she'd heard I was abusing my wife and that the whole family was going to make sure everyone knew what kind of man I really was. I said, go ahead. They did. They posted on Facebook about how controlling I was, how isolated their daughter was, how I was financially abusing her. Her mom wrote a whole essay about how I'd canceled my wife's Spotify account. I did. It was on my payment plan, and she'd upgrade it to the premium family plan and added six of her friends without asking as proof of my quote abuse. The Spotify thing went semi viral in their community. I started getting messages from random people calling me trash. So I posted the receipts, every single credit card statement, every purchase, screenshots of her text to her friends, talking about how she was never working again and how she'd trained me well. A photo of the closet in our spare bedroom that was literally wall to wall designer shopping bags. Her family lost it. Her dad threatened to sue me for defamation. Her brother showed up at my work and security had to escort him out. My wife called me crying, begging me to take the post down, saying I'd humiliated her and ruined her life. I said she ruined her own, her family, and committing fraud. Turns out that's exactly what she did. I talked to a lawyer. She opened two of those credit cards by forging my signature on applications that came in the mail. The other one she'd stolen from my desk and activated without telling me. That's identity theft. I filed a police report. She's been charged. Her family's still blowing up my phone, saying I'm destroying her future over a new purchases and for getting law enforcement involved. I filed for annulment. It got approved last week because of the fraud. Now her friends are saying I should have just communicated better and that I'm an AH for pressing charges instead of working it out. Some of my coworkers agree. They say marriage is about forgiveness. I'm starting to wonder if I went too far. Should I have just eaten the debt and divorced her quietly? Am I the A? All right. I skimmed this and I'm telling you, if I actually began to wonder if it was even real. But apparently it is. It ran 5 days ago. I am really glad this was not a call on their Dave Ramsey show, although it would have been great fodder for the channel. I would have loved to have had this as a call. But here's why I'm glad it's actually not a call. I fear, and you guys know I love the Ramsey show. Okay, I really do. But I fear in a situation like this, Mr. Papa Dave, okay, would have said what some of the other people were saying. And that is, let's all sit down, counsel, talk it out, and figure out, where we've gone wrong. No, in my opinion, there are times, circumstances where the best thing to do is run. See, this is why, family, it's really good that you don't wind up putting the cart before the horse. In other words, having a kid with someone without first being married. Because could you imagine if they had had a kid together and then they had gotten married? Now he'd be attached to this wicked woman for the rest of his life. Hey, I know they didn't have a kid, but it's one of those things I'm thinking of. For him, he's really lucky. He was able just to get up and leave. Now then, it says here this $47,000 shopping spree. I am so glad that she apparently had forged a couple of the credit cards. I will tell you this, and I'm not going to divulge individual names or anything, but I was in a relationship once, and the person apparently forged my name on a credit card. How did I know about it? When the credit card company called my elderly mother and said, "Hey, your daughter, Carrie, who lives on the other, my mother lives in Oregon, my late mom lives in Oregon, and this was a few years back. We have a credit card bill that we are trying to collect on." And so my mother, of course, what all creditors want, called me and said, basically, "Carrie, why are the creditors calling me?" Now, my late mom, God love her, but you better not bring your personal business into her life, okay? She's not the type of mother, "Hey, honey, the creditors are calling you." No, it's like, why are they calling me with your issues? Hey, that's just my mother's style, okay? And I said to her, she wasn't mad at me, don't get me wrong, but I said to her, there's no way," I said, "I could have possibly had a credit card that had a late payment, because at this time in my life, no, I didn't own any credit cards, and so there was no way for me to have a debt." This is a former relationship I was in, okay? No names shall be mentioned because I'm just that type of person, all right? But the relationship had already ended. And so we looked at the date on the credit cards, and it so turned out that could have even been held up legally. And so they wound up, meaning the creditors that were looking for me, okay, wound up, they didn't pursue anything because they didn't have a leg to stand on. See, I understand what it's like to be in a relationship and have somebody forge something under their name and try to make it be blamed on you. But you see, if this had been a Ramsey call, I really kind of believe that Ramsey would have said, John would have told him to go to counseling and all that. Ramsey would have said, "Take her by the hand. Okay. You're a married couple for better or worse." No, no. It's for, okay, so called. So let's say it's for better or worse, but sure as heck isn't for better or fraud. I don't recall that. I am so happy that this guy got out, that he was able to actually escape this. But guys, this tells you how hard it can be to find the right person. You can think you know everything about someone, and clearly she was looking for a paycheck. She was just looking for someone to support the lifestyle that she felt she should live. Now it says here, somewhere on here, it says he makes $90,000. I think is what he said. Yeah, he says makes about $90,000. So I'm assuming that's 90,000 gross. Okay. I make between teaching YouTube around, a nice, 80 plus. Okay. Um, no, you don't need a viral video to have a successful YouTube channel. You don't even need thousands of views. Okay. Let's put that to the side. All right. But yeah, I make in the 80s, low to mid, okay, between my teaching and my YouTube. And I can tell you, if you gave me a $47,000 bill, I would S bricks on you. Like, no, you're not gonna do that. So the fact that he makes 90K, yeah, he only makes, about 10,000 more than what I make. I wouldn't want that type of bill. But here's the thing, it's not even the bill, it's the character of the person. That's the bigger part. Who did you just marry? You married a woman who is more concerned about impressing her friends with how much crap she can buy. And the fact that she bought, what was it, two purses and something like that, it was $12,000 at from the get-go, the day after the wedding, 12 grand right there. And what was it? Four purses, two shoes and a wallet, Jimmy Choo all the way. So I'm really happy that he was able to get out. But guys, I think there's nothing wrong with saying you are clearly not the right person for me to marry or to have been married to. And the fact that he got this and old. Just because you're married to someone, the phrase for better or worse, I understand it, but fraud and all of that stuff, I think in this day and age, we might, and not saying I'm against marriage. Clearly, I would like to remarry someday. Okay. But I think we have to be careful about the worst part. I think maybe in olden days when women didn't have any rights and God knows, civil and racial, strife, and we were out, in the old Western, what I'm talking about, right? Olden days. And yeah, maybe for better or worse, because if you got divorced, there was no way for you, especially if you're a woman, okay, to survive or anything like that. But today, does the better or worse? Now, I'm not saying just up and leave on a dime, okay? Let's not misunderstand me here. But I do think the for better or worse part, I think if this had made it to Ramsey, Ramsey would have said, work it through. I really, really believe that. Jade would have told them to go to a credit union and see if they can get a loan to work it out. John would have told them to go to counseling. Ken would have told the Redditor to get another job to help support it. George would have been busy ordering a sandwich on Subway. I think I got that. All right, let's look at the next story. Again, I skim these stories before I present them on here. I do not read them in full. All right, this next one is 7 months ago. Let me click on it. Am I the blank for considering calling off my wedding because my fiance refuses to sign a prenup after I found out she has massive credit card debt? This ran 7 months ago. Let's take a look at it. I am just a middle aged man, supposed to be getting married in a few months to my fiance. We've been together for 3 years, engaged for one, and for most of that time, I genuinely believed we were on the same page about life's values and, most importantly, honesty. For background, I've worked hard to build a stable foundation. I'm not wealthy, but I own my home outright. I have no personal debt, and I've been saving and investing since my early 20s. It's been a priority for me, especially since my parents went through a nasty divorce that ruined both of them financially. About a month ago, while we were discussing wedding costs, I brought up a prenup, not in a cold or controlling way. I just wanted to protect the life I've worked hard to build. I was upfront that I'd still be fair and the agreement wouldn't leave her with nothing. I expected an adult conversation. Instead, she immediately got defensive. She said things like, "So you're already planning for a divorce?" And I thought we trusted each other. I tried to explain it wasn't about trust, it was about transparency and mutual protection. But she shut it down completely. That's when red flags started popping up. She became evasive every time money came up, and I started noticing weird credit card offers in the mail. A few missed payments on shared expenses she said she'd cover and lots of "I'll handle it later" energy. So I asked directly if she had debt. She had admitted it. $92,000 in credit card debt. Not student loans, not a mortgage, credit cards. She said it accumulated over the years from unexpected expenses and a few dumb splurges, but she never told me about any of it until I forced the issue. I was stunned. We were about to merge lives. This woman was about to legally become my spouse, and she didn't think I deserved to know she was six figures in the red. I told her this made the prenup non negotiable for me. I need to protect myself, not just emotionally, but financially. I told her I was willing to still move forward, but not without something in writing that protects my premarital assets. She lost it. She called me selfish, said I was turning love into a business deal. She said my house and my money should be hers too if we're truly a team. Since then, she's refused to talk about the prenup again, and we're barely speaking. Even her mother called me and accused me of humiliating her daughter and being materialistic. All I want is to not be liable for debt I didn't create and to make sure the life I built before this relationship is protected. So now I'm seriously reconsidering the whole wedding, not because she has debt, but because she hid it, then refused to take responsibility, and now is treating me like the bad guy for trying to protect myself. I'm also most certain that she could pay her debt since she is a partner in her friend's business, but she just refuses to. Am I the blank for thinking about walking away? And I don't think this has an update. As you know, I don't read the comments. Okay, so let's look here. She has $92,000 in credit card debt. Again, glad this isn't on the Ramsey show because he tell her, just hold her hand and, jump off the cliff and everything else and, figure out how to solve the debt together. I completely agree with him as far as it's not even the debt, but it's the fact that she didn't tell him. But see, here's the thing. $92,000 in debt. That's a whole piece of real estate, you guys. I mean, it's a small condo. It's another building. Put down in the comments, would you marry someone if you knew they had no, let's put it this way. Would you marry someone? Period. Let's just forget the prenup. Would you marry someone if they surprised you with $92,000 of debt that you did not know about? Forget even having a prenup. But for me, as far as prenups, if you look at where we're kind of at in our lives, wouldn't I will sign a prenup if the guy wants a prenup. I do not have a problem with that. Um, I've got here my little YouTube business that continues to grow thanks to you guys. Okay. I've got this. I have what will be a 30-year pension from teaching in 10 years and all of that. I understand reality. I understand the logistics. I understand that, people at the age, and he says he's a middle-aged guy. And he's supposed to be getting married. All right. They've been together for 3 years. That's a lot of deceit to be able to hide from someone that you're running up $100,000. And he made a really good point. Okay. That it's not about student or mortgage debt. It's not medical. It's strictly credit cards. And if you can run up 90,000 plus in credit card debt, and she said she took some vacations, I'm willing to bet you that most of it was fun stuff. It wasn't on the serious stuff. And they've been together for 3 years. So unless they've been going on lavish vacations together where she's been paying for it all, and I seriously doubt that is the case. And it's always amazes me how when someone has a whole lot of debt, and they're screaming at their to-be, spouse, I guess, saying that, basically calling the to-be spouse a loser, saying that, you only care about money. Hey, you know what? When you're middle-aged, you might want to look at it a little bit differently than you do when you're 20 and you're all both broke. There is a difference. And you always have to ask yourself a little bit, who has the most to lose if a relationship breaks up? See, that's another way to look at it. Okay. Who has the most to lose financially if the relationship goes? I am confident enough in my finances that I would be willing to sign a prenup because I come to the table with something. See, that's the difference. So if he said, "Would you sign a prenup?" and of course he asked me politely and all, not like, "Hey, Carrie, I'm not sure. You used to be a shopping addict. You could." No, that's not the way to approach it. But if it's like, "Hey, we understand the realities. I get it. If it would make you feel more comfortable to sign a prenup, I will sign. Protect each other's assets, whatever." Okay. I can't tell you if I ever would. I mean, I can't say definitively, yes, I would sign a prenup. No, I would not. We have to look at the individual situation. But one of the things you look at is who has the most to lose. She has everything to lose. Well, actually, they both do, but she really has. Okay, let me try to rephrase this correctly. She has a lot to lose financially because she's coming with nothing to the table. See, that's what I make sure you understand what I mean when I say she has everything to lose. He literally has everything to lose financially. Whereas in my case, let's say, he and I each marry. I really think that when you're both financially solid and secure, again, I'm not saying go with a prenup or don't go. It's all individual. Okay. But when you both come to the table with something, I think in some ways it makes signing a prenup easier because even if the relationship were to end, okay, you each came with something of value and you're not going to take that from each other. But in her case, she comes with nothing but a whole bunch of debt. So I would expect her to flip out when he says sign a prenup. Again, I think you have to look at each individual situation. This one ran 8 months ago. Am I the blank for being angry? My tax refund paid off my husband's child support. Oh, this is great. This ran 8 months ago. My husband and I filed our taxes jointly this year for the past 2 years. I was completely unaware he had $7,000 in unpaid child support. I thought he was making regular monthly payments. We were expecting a refund, but only $175 was deposited. I feel blindsided, violated, and taken advantage of. When I brought this up, he dismissed my feelings and told me I should be grateful the child support is now paid off because it means he can contribute more money each month. Logic doesn't make sense to me. His child is still under 18, so he still has to make ongoing payments regardless. I feel physically ill. He is not supportive of how I'm feeling whatsoever and is actually angry at me for how I'm responding. Okay, I'm going to tell you a secret just between us and the internet. All right. Um, I don't. Okay, let me. How do I put this nicely? All right, I'm not hating. First off, she married a loser, an absolute loser. $7,000 in unpaid child support. Okay, she was unaware of. And what have I told you guys? When somebody is in arrears on something, you do not want to share accounts. Because when you share accounts and they come in to take that credit card garnishment, that student loan garnishment, the here child support, any big thing, especially things dealing with the state credit, what is it, child support and student loan, okay, especially credit cards, you kind of know it's coming because they have to take it to court and all that. Remember what I've said though, when you share an account with somebody, any garnishment that comes out of it, they gonna wipe out the whole freaking thing, and that includes your tax return, of course, because it looks like they filed together. So she says she was unaware that he had $7,000. Um, I sometimes wonder if he didn't just simply marry her for the money. I'm going to tell you a little fear of mine, okay? Why I don't date men with small kids. The age that about the youngest I'm willing to entertain is someone who has a 15-year-old. I'm going to tell you why, okay? I figure we're going to date at least a couple of years before, we would even think of getting married because I'm not dating someone for less than a couple of years. That puts the kid at 17. By the time we get it said and done, bim, bam, boom, we're now 18. Okay, there we go. My big fear, and this is just my perspective of life, okay? My big fear is getting together with someone who has kids that have years left to raise. I'm not talking they got 2, 3 years left to 18. I'm talking, they got 10, 15. Having them hook up with me, and you know how hard I'm willing to work. I work. I work hard. What time is it right now? It's about 8:30 on Tuesday. Excuse me, on Monday night. Okay. I work long hours. I work a full-time job. I work a part-time job. I do what's necessary to cover our household. And then having them say to me when the kid gets 18 or whatever, thanks. It really wasn't, they wouldn't say it directly, not in love with you anymore, but thanks. The kids are raised. You helped, fund his lifestyle. I'm not saying all guys are like this, okay? But I'm just giving you my fear. This case kind of reminds me of it. He marries her. He knows he's behind in child support. He needs somebody to help support his lifestyle. Doesn't tell her, gets her to double, we will file our taxes together. If they had filed separately, this would not have happened. But here's the thing, it wouldn't have really mattered because either way, the debt under the household is owed. So and you've heard me say this, there's no such thing as, well, okay, you pay for your kids. No. When someone says, oh, you don't have to pay for my kids, I can pay my bill myself. Great. You're paying for your kids. Well, I'm paying for the household stuff. Now, again, if I'm madly in love with you and you're treating me right, yada, yada, I treat you right. Okay. No problem. I'm looking at worst case scenario here. Okay. I genuinely believe he married her for her money. I really do. Because why else would you marry someone, not tell them there's $7,000 in child arrears? And then she's absolutely right. This line about his kids are still under 18 and he's going, oh, this is great because it means he contribute money each month. He still can't contribute money each month. He still owes child support each month for the kids, for the remainder years. All he did was suck up the household money, meaning her money, okay? Sucked up the household money to catch his previous life up. That's a sucky deal. So this is just what that story reminds me of. And I have to expect that when the kids hit 18, he's probably out of there. Just telling you. Okay, moving on. I think we have one more story here. Let's see. I have a total limit of 4. We did the wedding thing. We did that. Okay, one more story. I think there's one. I know there's one more story on here. Hold on, hold on. I don't edit this stuff out because this is all casual. Let's see. This one. Okay, this is worth sticking around for. This happened 2 years ago. And again, I'm delving into this, detail with you. But look at the title. 2 years ago. Am I the blank for telling my husband if he fights for custody of his kids, I will divorce him? Okay. And again, I just skim it. So I don't, it's not too long. All right, let's do it. We're at about the 27-minute mark. I like to keep it around 30 minutes or so. Here we go. Okay. Am I the blank for telling my husband if he fights for custody of his kids, I will divorce him 2 years ago? I'm 27. I am vehemently child free. Ooh, okay. I am sterilized and have no intention of having or caring for any child. I married my husband 33 years old last year and did not know he had any children until 5 days ago. I travel for work, I work for myself, and have amazing pay for very few active working hours. I'm a honeymoon planner owning my own business. We have a joint account for bills and our own separate accounts for savings and fund money. My husband sat me down 5 days ago and told me he hadn't been completely honest with me and revealed he has two children, ages 10 for the boy and 7 for the girl. He pays regular child support. However, it dips into his fund money and he wants to be able to have fun like I am. So he said he would fight for 50-50 custody. I was furious he had lied to me and was even more angry when he told me he wanted 50-50, meaning the the husband wants to share custody with the ex-wife. He works 12 to 16-hour shifts as a nurse, and that would mean I would have to take care of the children when I'm not working or we're not working from home. I told him if he fights for custody, I will leave him. We have a prenup, so a divorce will be rather simple. I get 100% of my business, all my savings and fund money, and the house, as I inherited it from my grandmother. He called me an AH and told me I should step up so that he can have more money in his savings and for fun. And because the kids won't be much hassle due to their ages. Remember, they're 10 and 7. So am I the blank for telling him I will divorce him if he goes through with filing for custody? All right, I'm going to actually read you the update. She says, thanks for helping with the situation. I know his lies were enough of reason to divorce, and I'm proud to announce he will soon be my ex. All right. I'm going to give you my uh, take on it. I have never wanted my own kids. I don't mind a I don't mind marrying someone who has their kids, but like I said earlier, they're older, okay? 15 and up. That's just my, and I also like 15 because it gets it out of that, I teach middle school. It gets it out of that really, really super hormonal, 12, 13, 14 age, okay, where they hate everybody. By the time they start rounding 16, 17, their eyes slowly start to see more of the world. They become, a little bit more accepting of things. Not saying everybody, but in general, okay? I really don't wish to deal with the 12, 13, 14. I'd work with that all day. She says here she's vehemently child free. She has that right. I've never wanted children myself. I've never used the word, I am vehemently child free. Okay. But I did have a total hysterectomy when I was 27. Um, for issues that won't be discussed. But I've never wanted children. So I've always made sure that I never put myself in a situation where I would have them. And then, of course, at age 27, I had a total hysterectomy, huge medical problems and all of that stuff. She says here, it looks like she has her work life and her balance. So what happened was he married her under false pretenses. Guys, just like the other story we read, okay? $92,000 of debt. And the other one, $47,000 as soon as you get, the day after they get married, or it was 12,000 the day after they got married. When you are married to someone who married you under false pretenses, you have every right to call it off. It doesn't matter that she wanted to be child free and all of that. What matters is that he wasn't honest with her and saying, hey, you know what? I got a couple of kids and they're not even anywhere near adulthood yet. That's where the problem is. But as far as, being child free, and that's her lifestyle, and that's what she presented to her husband or to her fiance at the time and said, look, this is the lifestyle I want. Can you live with it? And he goes, yeah. But yet he's got these kids. And let me point out, in both of these last two stories, I think I'm pretty much all of them, but these last two, okay, I really, really believe because they deal with kids, you are talking men who want help raising the children financially. They need someone to financially bring in money. They need someone to be there, to be a warm body, to babysit. You see, you got to be careful of that, ladies. And of course, there are plenty of things for men to be careful about when they get married to a woman. So, and she doesn't want the lifestyle. He works 12 to 16-hour shifts as a nurse. So what's she supposed to do? compromise her business. And again, people can say, oh, but that's so selfish. She won't help out with the kids. It's selfish if she married him knowing that the kids existed, knowing that, hey, this is, we're going to fight for 50-50. He's going to fight for 50-50 custody. And if he gets the custody, is she willing to help raise the kids? Okay. That's marrying under real, not false pretenses. But when she thinks, hey, you're happy being child free, I'm happy being child free. You're a nurse. I'm, a business person, helps with honeymoon planning. And we think that we are on the same page. And then someone all of a sudden flips the dice as soon as you get married or a few years later and says, no, I've actually got this hidden life going on in the background. And you be like, oh, no, I'm not playing that game. You have every right to divorce.